The strange case of Michael Palmer. The mystery of Michael Palmer has lingered over Alaska for decades, marked by unanswered questions and a trail of puzzling clues that have never fully aligned. In the early morning hours of the 4th of June 1999, 15-year-old Michael Palmer disappeared after leaving a graduation party with friends, beginning a case that remains unresolved and deeply troubling to those who remember it. Michael Timothy Palmer was born on the 8th of January 1984 and raised in Wasilla, Alaska, by his parents Lisa and Charles. One of 4 children, Michael was close to his brothers and known as an outdoors-oriented teenager who enjoyed hiking, fishing, and hunting. Although few personal details about his daily life are publicly available, those who knew him described him as active, familiar with the land, and comfortable navigating rural terrain. On the evening of the 4th of June, Michael was staying overnight at a friend's house. At some point, he and 3 friends slipped out and rode bicycles to a graduation gathering near the Meadow Lakes area. Why they chose that particular gathering remains unclear, as confirmed details about the event are limited. Accounts suggest Michael consumed a small amount of alcohol, though witnesses noted that he appeared alert and aware of his surroundings. As the night turned into early morning, the boys departed and began riding back toward their friend's home. Michael was last seen on Pittman Road at around 4 in the morning, riding more slowly than the others. His friends continued ahead for several miles before realizing he was no longer behind them. Hearing nothing alarming, they waited for him in the brightly lit parking lot of a convenience store along Parks Highway. After waiting for a significant period of time, they assumed Michael had chosen to head home instead. He never arrived. Later that day, when Michael did not return home, his mother contacted the household where he had been staying and learned that no one knew his whereabouts. Law enforcement was notified during the afternoon, and search efforts began almost immediately. Volunteers, officers, and tracking dogs combed the area, but within the first day, only 2 unsettling discoveries emerged. Michael's borrowed bicycle was found submerged in the Little Susitna River, a location that made little sense given the routes he would have taken. The river was shallow, clear, and filled with natural obstructions that would have prevented anything large from traveling far. Divers searched thoroughly and found nothing else. Dogs were unable to trace Michael's scent anywhere near the river, casting doubt on the idea that he had remained in the water. Adding to the confusion, Michael's high-top Converse shoes were discovered roughly 200 yards away on a private airstrip. They were wet, muddy, and placed neatly beside one another. This detail troubled investigators and family members alike, as it suggested deliberate action rather than an accident. Despite an extensive search covering approximately 4 square miles of surrounding woods and open land, no additional evidence surfaced. Rumors soon began circulating within the community. Some claimed Michael had been harmed during a confrontation at a party. Anonymous callers repeated similar stories, leading Michael's brother Chris to suspect that something violent had occurred. Authorities investigated each claim and determined that the incidents described had taken place at different gatherings where Michael had not been present. Months later, a teenage boy spread a disturbing account, alleging he had witnessed Michael being badly injured on a bridge far from where the bicycle was found. After questioning and examination, the individual admitted the story had been fabricated for attention. Other reported sightings placed Michael at distant social gatherings, including one in Talkeetna, but none were confirmed. Investigators ultimately leaned toward an accidental explanation, while the Palmer family believed outside involvement was more likely. Michael's father questioned the sequence of events described by the friends, though their accounts remained consistent over time. The family hired private investigators, one of whom reportedly stepped away after receiving threats, while another suggested Michael may have been intercepted while traveling alone. No proof ever supported these theories. Tragedy would touch the family again nearly 11 years later when Michael's older brother Chuck vanished while snowmobiling near Talkeetna in April 2010. His snowmobile was recovered, but he was not. Authorities believed environmental factors played a role, and no link between the brothers' disappearances was established. Michael Palmer's case remains open. All identified persons of interest have been cleared, and no substantial leads have emerged in many years. What happened in those quiet early hours remains unknown, leaving behind a mystery shaped by silence, scattered evidence, and a family still waiting for clarity. The mysterious case of Kenneka Jenkins. On the 9th of September, 2017, 19-year-old Kenneka Jenkins spent what would be the final day of her life with friends, unaware of the tragedy that would unfold in the early hours of the next morning. What began as a night of celebration and laughter turned into a mystery that continues to haunt the public imagination, stirring both heartbreak and questions that still remain unanswered. Kenneka had initially made plans with her group of friends to go see a movie that night. Somewhere along the way, however, the group made a last-minute decision to attend a birthday celebration instead. The chosen location was the Crowne Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel in Rosemont, Illinois. The party was being held in room 926, high up on the 9th floor of the hotel. Before arriving, the group stopped to pick up a few items: a Bluetooth speaker for music, a bottle of Hennessy, and an energy drink. These were meant to enhance the mood of a fun-filled night. According to surveillance footage, Kenneka and her friends walked into the front lobby of the hotel around 1:13 in the morning. The group of young women appeared cheerful and excited, seemingly ready to enjoy the night ahead. At approximately 1:36 in the morning, a Facebook Live video was recorded by one of the attendees. The camera pointed directly at a girl wearing mirrored glasses. If one looks closely, a reflection in the glasses appears to show Kenneka sitting in the background. This brief moment would later become one of the most scrutinized clips related to the case, watched by millions of people across social media platforms. By 2:17 in the morning, Kenneka herself posted a Snapchat video, seemingly filmed in one of the hotel bathrooms. Witnesses later stated that around 30 people were in attendance at the party. Throughout the night, Kenneka could be seen dancing, chatting with others, and drinking. There were no obvious signs that anything was wrong at the time. As the night progressed, the party began to break up. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, guests started to leave. Kenneka realized she had left behind some of her personal belongings, including her phone. While she waited by the elevators on the 9th floor, her friends returned to the room to collect her things. According to them, they were only gone for about 10 to 15 minutes. When they came back, she had vanished. Surveillance footage from inside the hotel shows Kenneka wandering through a number of hallways and corridors. She appears disoriented, stumbling and bumping into the walls and even a stair railing. Her movements are slow, and she looks visibly impaired. Eventually, the camera records her walking into an unused kitchen area. After she rounds a corner, she exits the camera's view and is never seen moving again. Investigators later confirmed that the area she entered included a walk-in freezer. Although the door latched from the outside, it could also be opened from the inside by pressing a white handle. Still, something happened in that freezer, and Kenneka did not make it back out. At 4 o'clock in the morning, one of Kenneka's friends contacted her mother to ask if she had made it home. When the answer was no, the friend explained that Kenneka had gone missing at the hotel and they couldn't find her anywhere. By 7:15 in the morning, family and friends had already been searching the hotel for about an hour. Kenneka's mother then decided to contact the police. She told them that her daughter had been drinking and would never have willingly left without her phone. Officers advised her to wait a few more hours in case Kenneka turned up on her own. Later that day, Kenneka was officially reported as missing. At 8:30 in the evening, the police were called again, this time by hotel staff who said the family was going door to door, disturbing guests in their search efforts. The police returned, and after some urging, the family was asked to step aside so that officers could take over the investigation. In the early morning hours of the 10th of September, at around 12:30, a hotel employee entered the unused kitchen and opened the walk-in freezer. There, lying on her side, was Kenneka Jenkins. One of her shoes was off, and she appeared to be face down. The employee quickly contacted the authorities. When first responders arrived, they found her unresponsive. Her body was cold, and she had no heartbeat. At 12:48 in the morning, Kenneka was pronounced no longer living. Later, as her body was wheeled out of the freezer, a worker pulled the covering from her face and placed a blanket over her. Her family was then brought in to identify her. The heartbreak was immediate and immeasurable. Authorities would later rule her passing as accidental, citing exposure to cold and intoxication as contributing factors. But for many, that explanation did not sit right. Legal professionals and independent experts noted several inconsistencies. How did she manage to wander so far without being noticed? Why was that area of the hotel accessible in the first place, and why wasn't help summoned sooner when she was first reported missing? The footage, the timeline, and the unanswered questions ignited protests. Demonstrators gathered in front of the hotel, demanding transparency and accountability. Social media was flooded with posts seeking justice, and Kenneca's story became a symbol for those who believe that too often women are not given the full attention they deserve when they go missing or are found under mysterious circumstances. Years have passed since that September weekend, yet the case continues to stir emotions and debates. Though authorities have closed the case, for Kenneca's family and supporters, closure remains elusive. Her story is remembered not only as a tragedy, but as a call for better protection, quicker responses, and more rigorous investigations when lives are on the line. Kenneca Jenkins was a vibrant young woman whose life was cut short far too soon. The questions surrounding her final hours serve as a painful reminder that sometimes the answers we are given are not enough. The search for truth continues, not just for Kenneca, but for every life that deserves to be seen, heard, and honored. The mysterious case of Chris Fowler. In the remote stretches of the Pacific Crest Trail, a footpath known for its breathtaking beauty and rugged terrain, a quiet mystery lingers. Chris Fowler, a 34-year-old hiker from Ohio, had embarked on what was meant to be the adventure of a lifetime, an ambitious journey along the entirety of the Pacific Crest Trail, which stretches from the border of Mexico all the way to Canada. Known affectionately by his trail name Sherpa, Chris was full of hope, spirit, and determination as he worked his way northward. But in the autumn of 2016, just as he approached the final leg of his long journey, Chris vanished without a trace. Chris had already hiked thousands of miles by the time he reached the last leg of the trail. After months of dedication, he arrived at White Pass in Washington state, where he was dropped off near the small town of Packwood. It was the 12th of October, a date that would later mark his last known confirmed location. That afternoon, around 5 o'clock, Chris's phone attempted to place a call to his father. Although the call did not connect, the signal helped place him near White Pass at the time. Earlier that day, he had been spotted at a convenience store where he reportedly discussed the approaching weather with concern. A powerful storm was forecasted to move through the area. It had originated across the Pacific and was set to bring cold temperatures, high winds, and heavy rain to the region, conditions that would be challenging for anyone caught unprepared. Even seasoned hikers like Chris would need to act quickly to find shelter or reassess their plans. Yet, despite the warnings, Chris appears to have continued on. From that moment, everything becomes uncertain. The trail north of White Pass winds through isolated terrain. It is wild, beautiful, and in many places, unforgiving. While some believe Chris decided to push through the coming storm in hopes of finishing the trail, others have speculated that he may have sought a detour to safety or possibly left the trail altogether to ride out the weather in a nearby town. What makes the situation more confusing is that unconfirmed sightings of him came in after his last known whereabouts. On the 14th of October, 2 days after his phone last pinged, someone reported seeing a man matching Chris's description at a small store and gas station in Greenwater, Washington. The sighting was never definitively confirmed. Later, on the 22nd of October, a group of hunters near Blowout Mountain claimed to have seen someone who looked like Chris off the main trail. That location was roughly 62 miles north of where he had last been seen. If true, it suggested he had made significant progress, but again, there was no confirmation. After the 12th of October, Chris's phone went completely silent. There were no financial transactions, no social media activity, and no further communication with friends or family. His disappearance triggered a widespread search effort. Rescue teams, volunteers, scent-tracking dogs, drones, and helicopters all scoured the landscape between White Pass and the Canadian border. Yet, despite extensive efforts, not a single trace of Chris or his belongings was discovered. Chris was described by those who met him as kind, generous, and deeply passionate about the outdoors. He was friendly, encouraging, and connected easily with other hikers. Many recalled how thoughtful he was, often offering help and conversation along the trail. His trail name, Sherpa, reflected his spirit of service and quiet strength. He wasn't a reckless adventurer. He was experienced and deliberate, which only deepens the mystery of his disappearance. His family, especially his mother, Sally Fowler, has never stopped searching for answers. Sally has worked tirelessly, partnering with local authorities, private investigators, search teams, and online communities. She has helped keep Chris's story alive year after year, determined that his memory not fade into the background. Flyers and posters bearing his photograph and description continue to be posted along the Pacific Crest Trail, acting both as a reminder and a beacon of hope. Many theories have emerged about what could have happened to Chris. One of the most widely accepted is that he became disoriented or overwhelmed during the storm and was unable to find shelter. In such weather, even experienced hikers can face overwhelming conditions. If he ventured off the trail to find protection, it's possible he became lost in unfamiliar terrain. Others believe that he may have suffered a sudden medical event or simply lost his footing in one of the many steep and remote areas the trail passes through. There are also theories suggesting that Chris encountered someone along the way who may have contributed to his disappearance. Though there is no direct evidence to support this, those closest to Chris have considered every possibility. Some have even entertained the idea that he may have chosen to leave his life behind and start fresh elsewhere, but this theory is largely rejected by his family and friends. Chris had made plans for after his hike and had been in regular contact with his loved ones. Years have now passed, yet the questions remain. Why was there no sign of struggle, no items left behind, and no conclusive trail? How could someone simply vanish in a world filled with satellites, signals, and search tools? The Pacific Northwest is vast and dense, and it's possible the land itself has concealed the answers all this time. Chris Fowler's story has resonated far beyond his immediate circle. The hiking community continues to speak his name, remember his face, and share his story. New hikers who set out on the Pacific Crest Trail often learn about him and carry his memory with them. His story is a somber reminder of the risks and unpredictability that come with wilderness exploration. Though answers have remained elusive, Chris's journey continues to inspire reflection on the fragility of life, the strength of hope, and the enduring mystery of nature's vastness. Somewhere out there, along the winding ridges and quiet valleys of Washington, the story of Sherpa waits to be finished. The mystery of Dorothy Jane Scott. Dorothy Jane Scott was a kind and soft-spoken woman who lived a quiet life centered around work and family. Born on the 23rd of April, 1948, in McKeesport, Pennsylvania, Dorothy eventually moved with her family to California, where she would spend the rest of her life. By the time she was in her early 30s, she had become a devoted single mother to her young son Shanti, whom she lovingly called Sean. The two lived with her aunt in Stanton, California, and Dorothy worked as a secretary at two small shops in Anaheim, one a head shop, the other a boutique selling novelty items. She was responsible and deeply committed to providing a stable life for her son. Dorothy was not someone who sought attention or lived recklessly. In fact, she avoided the nightlife, did not drink, and preferred to spend time with her family rather than go out. She rarely dated and was described by those who knew her as caring, deeply religious, and gentle in nature. But beneath the calm surface of her life, an unsettling problem had started to grow, one that would ultimately change everything. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Dorothy began receiving disturbing phone calls from an unidentified man. The calls were both confusing and frightening. Sometimes the caller would profess deep affection for her, claiming he loved her. At other times, he would make threats and describe scenarios meant to frighten her. Though the voice sounded vaguely familiar to her, she was never able to pinpoint exactly who the man might be. Dorothy confided in her family and co-workers about the strange calls, and even enrolled in self-defense classes shortly before she vanished. She had also considered purchasing a form of protection, further showing her growing concern. On the evening of the 28th of May, 1980, Dorothy was attending a late meeting at work when she noticed that her co-worker, Conrad Bostron, looked unwell. Along with another colleague, Pam Head, Dorothy offered to drive him to the emergency room at UC Irvine Medical Center. On the way, they stopped by Dorothy's parents' home to drop off Sean. For reasons unknown, she changed her scarf from black to red before they left. This detail would later take on strange significance. At the hospital, the group learned that Conrad had been bitten by a black widow spider. While he was being treated, Dorothy and Pam waited in the lounge area. Pam would later tell police that Dorothy never left her sight during their time in the hospital waiting room. By around 11 o'clock, Conrad was discharged. Dorothy, always kind and thoughtful, offered to bring her car around to the front so he wouldn't have to walk far. She made a quick trip to the restroom and then walked to the parking lot alone. Minutes passed. Suddenly, Conrad and Pam spotted Dorothy's car. It was moving quickly and seemed to head toward them, but then, strangely, it drove right past without stopping. They were unable to clearly see who was behind the wheel due to the brightness of the headlights. That was the last time anyone reported seeing Dorothy. Several hours later, in the early hours of the morning, Dorothy's white 1973 Toyota station wagon was found abandoned and on fire in an alley, roughly 10 miles from the hospital. Dorothy was not inside, nor was there any immediate trace of her nearby. Authorities launched a search, but no sign of her could be found. Then came a chilling phone call. On the 12th of June, a man contacted a local newspaper and described details of Dorothy's clothing and the hospital visit, specifics that had not been released to the public. He also claimed that she had called him from the hospital, something that her friend Pam firmly denied, as Dorothy had not left her side. Following this, Dorothy's parents began receiving anonymous calls nearly every Wednesday. The man would alternate between saying Dorothy was still alive and claiming he had caused her harm. Each call was short, making it impossible for police to trace them. On one occasion, her father answered instead of her mother, and the caller hung up without speaking. After Dorothy's remains were discovered, the calls stopped. On the 6th of August, 1984, construction workers found skeletal remains near Santa Ana Canyon Road, roughly 7 miles from the hospital. Dental records confirmed that the remains belonged to Dorothy Jane Scott. Her turquoise ring and a watch, stopped at 12:32 a.m. on the 29th of May, were also recovered at the scene. Interestingly, the remains of a dog were discovered nearby. Investigators were unsure if the presence of the animal was related or purely coincidental. Due to the passage of time and the condition of the remains, the cause of her passing could not be determined. Some evidence suggested exposure to high heat, likely from a wildfire that had swept through the area 2 years earlier. Though many questions were raised, few answers came. The man who had stalked Dorothy appeared to know intimate details about her life and work routine. He seemed to be someone who had access to her schedule and had watched her closely. Investigators believed that he may have been someone connected to her workplace. One of the more notable persons of interest was Mike Butler, whose sister worked with Dorothy. It was said he had shown an unusual fascination with her, and some theorized that Dorothy's familiarity with the caller's voice could have stemmed from brief or passing encounters. Another odd detail emerged about the property where her remains were found. It was connected to her former boss, John Cosilla. While police found no clear link between him and Dorothy's disappearance, some questioned whether the remains had been placed there intentionally or moved there by natural forces like flooding or erosion. Cosilla was never officially labeled a suspect. Despite intense media attention and public interest, Dorothy's case grew cold over time. Her family, friends, and the public were left without closure. Her parents passed away without seeing justice or answers for what happened to their daughter. To this day, the mystery of Dorothy Jane Scott remains one of Southern California's most haunting unsolved cases. Her story is a somber reminder of how even the most ordinary lives can be interrupted by something sinister. Though time has passed, her memory endures, and so do the questions. Who was the man who called her? Why did he choose Dorothy, and how did he manage to vanish without ever being identified? The case remains open, and those who still remember her hold on to the hope that one day, the truth will finally come to light. The strange case of District Attorney Ray Gricar. The disappearance of District Attorney Ray Gricar remains one of the most perplexing mysteries in recent American history. On the 15th of April 2005, Gricar, then aged 59, left his home in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, for what seemed like an ordinary drive. He called his longtime partner, Patty Fornicola, and informed her that he was driving through the scenic Brush Valley region, northeast of Center Hall. That call would be the last time anyone heard from him. When Gricar failed to return later that evening, Fornicola became concerned and reported him missing. The next day, his red Mini Cooper was discovered abandoned in a parking lot across from an antique mall in Lewisburg, approximately 60 miles from his home. Inside the locked vehicle, investigators found his county-issued mobile phone. However, his laptop, wallet, and car keys were missing. Most notably, there was no sign of Griecar himself. The placement of the vehicle near two bridges spanning the Susquehanna River immediately drew comparisons to a tragic event from the past. Griecar's older brother, Roy, had been found near a bridge in Ohio in the year 1996, following a similar disappearance. Authorities could not ignore the striking similarities in the circumstances, yet in Ray's case, there were no conclusive signs suggesting what had happened next. No note, no indication of distress, and no eyewitness accounts emerged from the area. Following the discovery of the Mini Cooper, investigators conducted a meticulous search of the Susquehanna River and the surrounding terrain. Dive teams and search dogs combed the area, but found nothing definitive to clarify what had happened to the district attorney. The involvement of sniffer dogs did, however, raise new possibilities. Some of the dogs indicated that Griecar may have entered another vehicle, suggesting the potential presence of a second party. This added yet another layer to an already baffling puzzle. At the request of Pennsylvania officials, the Federal Bureau of Investigation stepped in to assist. They examined Griecar's bank accounts, credit card records, and cell phone activity, but no leads were uncovered. There were no signs of purchases, no withdrawals, no outgoing communications, nothing that pointed toward a planned disappearance or escape. It was as though Griecar had simply vanished. Then, months later, a disturbing discovery deepened the mystery. On the 30th of July, fishermen found Griecar's county-issued laptop submerged in the Susquehanna River under a bridge between Lewisburg and Milton. The laptop was badly water damaged, but officials held out hope that the hard drive could reveal important information. However, the hard drive itself was missing. Roughly 2 months later, a separate discovery was made about 100 yards from where the laptop had been found. A damaged hard drive, presumed to be from Griecar's computer, was located on the riverbank. Unfortunately, after being thoroughly analyzed by the FBI, the US Secret Service, and a data recovery company, it was concluded that no usable data could be recovered. Whatever information the hard drive once held had been permanently lost. The incident took another strange turn in April of 2009, when police revealed that someone had previously used the home computer that Griecar shared with Fornicola to search online for terms such as how to destroy a hard drive, how to damage a hard drive, and the effects of water on a laptop. These searches had been conducted prior to Griecar's disappearance, raising chilling questions about whether his missing laptop and hard drive had been deliberately tampered with. With no signs of Griecar, and the passage of years offering no new answers, his daughter Lara filed a legal petition in June of 2011 to have him officially declared deceased. Just 1 day after that petition was filed, a peculiar development occurred. Law enforcement in Utah detained a man who closely resembled Griecar. The man refused to reveal his identity and bore striking similarities in height, weight, facial features, and even had similar wrinkles to Griecar. For a brief moment, there was hope that perhaps he had been found. However, after comparing fingerprints, authorities confirmed that the man was not Ray Griecar. The mystery remained intact. Speculation about Griecar's disappearance has taken many forms. Some believe that, like his brother, he may have chosen to disappear near a body of water in a moment of personal crisis. Others suggest he may have staged his own disappearance, possibly to escape his high-profile position or personal pressures that were never made public. There are also those who think he may have been the target of someone seeking revenge, especially given his role as district attorney and his history of prosecuting sensitive cases. Still, there is no concrete evidence supporting any of these theories. One of the most compelling aspects of the mystery is the complete lack of closure. Despite searches, national media attention, and the involvement of multiple federal agencies, not a single piece of definitive evidence has ever confirmed what happened to Ray Griecar. His personal items were discovered in locations that seem purposeful, his laptop in the river, the hard drive separated and irreparably damaged, but the story behind these actions remains unknown. What makes this case particularly haunting is the seeming contradiction between Grikar's well-ordered life and his unexplained disappearance. He was respected, admired, and known for his thoughtful and measured approach to work and life. He showed no outward signs of distress and had made no mention of taking time off or stepping away. Friends, family, and colleagues all attested to the fact that he was behaving normally in the days leading up to his disappearance. To this day, the story of Ray Grikar remains open and unresolved. His name has become synonymous with quiet mystery, a case with just enough clues to hint at possible answers, but not enough to uncover the truth. Whether he left voluntarily, met with unexpected circumstances, or something else entirely occurred, the questions remain suspended in time. For those who knew and loved him, the disappearance of Ray Grikar is more than a true crime puzzle. It is a personal and painful void, and for investigators and the public alike, it serves as a reminder that even those who uphold justice can sometimes become the center of unsolved stories with no conclusion, only lingering shadows. The mysterious case of Antonio Vilas Boas. Working as a farmer back in October of 1957, Antonio Vilas Boas would go on to be one of the first reported encounters with mysterious entities. According to his report, on the night of October 15, 1957, Antonio and his brother were out working in their fields when they began to notice a bright red light in the night sky. Originally, they had believed the light to have been a form of aircraft, but then, as time went on, they assumed that given its stationary position in the sky, it was most likely a star they had never noticed before. They would finish a portion of the fields that night with no further incident. On the night of October 16, 1957, Antonio was out working in his fields without the help of his brother well after the sun had set once again, to avoid the scorching temperatures of the daytime. He was well equipped to work throughout the night, as he had done many times before, sitting on his tractor and ploughing his fields for the next few hours. Oddly enough, as Antonio was working, he then claimed to see the same bright red star as he witnessed on the previous night out in the distance. Although the bright red star was an anomaly, he wasn't too worried by it, as he and his brother had seen the red light the previous night, to which it seemingly displayed no strange patterns other than having moved a few times before. Unfortunately, Antonio was alone that night, without the aid of his brother, and so the situation would not be the same as the previous day. He continued to work, unsure of what he was seeing, keeping an eye on the strange red star seemingly unmoving across the sky, but appearing brighter and closer than the previous night. A few more moments passed before he began to notice that the red star was growing in size. Worried it could be any number of things, he quickly stopped working and looked over at the bright red light, trying to figure out what it could have been. He then began to realize that the bright red star wasn't growing in size, but that rather it was definitely some form of an aircraft quickly approaching his position. It was not long before he could make out the shape of the craft, a roughly circular or egg-shaped aerial craft with a bright red light at the front and a strange rotating tower protruding from the top, as the entire aircraft seemingly hovered without any visible mechanisms for propulsion. As the aircraft began to descend near the location of Antonio Vilas Boas, it began to protrude 3 extended legs to support the craft as it landed in the nearby fields. After seeing the craft descend, Antonio put his tractor into gear and tried to leave the area as fast as he could. After only a few seconds, however, his tractor completely died, as all of the lights on the tractor shut off and its engine suddenly stopped. Believing the strange aircraft to have been responsible for this sudden shut-off, Antonio quickly jumped from the tractor and began running on foot through the fields, away from the landed craft. As Antonio was running, falling in and out of the soft, recently ploughed field, he was quickly captured by a small, 5-foot-tall, humanoid creature, wearing grey coveralls and a helmet. Though it's not specified whether or not the creature's helmet was that of a completely airtight system, or merely a protective gear worn on the head, Antonio does not specify that he was able to see the entirety of the humanoid's face that grabbed him. He only states that he noticed its eyes were small and blue, and that, as it spoke, it made noises similar to that of a bark or yelping sound. Shortly after the first humanoid seized Antonio, 3 more humanoids of similar description joined in and subdued him, rapidly dragging him inside of their aircraft as he fought to try to get away. Once dragged inside, the humanoid creatures then began to take Antonio's clothes off as they then began to cover him from head to toe in a gelatinous compound. After being completely covered by the gelatinous compound, Antonio then described an overwhelming feeling of calmness that prevented him from fighting back, leaving many to assume that the strange compound had some sort of effect on his body. As he entered this new docile state, the humanoid figures led him towards a large semicircular room through a tight doorway that had a number of mysterious red symbols written all over it. It was at this point, when Antonio entered the room, that the true nature of the humanoid figures became obvious. The figures began to take samples of blood from Antonio's chin, leaving behind a deep mark that would later prove as evidence of the encounter, as the scar would last for over 2 years before properly healing. These figures then led him into a third room, where they pumped a large amount of gas into the chamber that made Antonio violently ill. As Antonio was gasping for breath, believing he would soon be taken out, he saw the main door into the chamber open with a naked female humanoid creature standing in front of him. The female humanoid creature was described by Antonio Villas-Boas as being 5 foot tall, a height that was similar to the other beings he had encountered. The female humanoid also seemed to possess large blue cat-like eyes that made her appear to be inhuman. Additional facial features included a small pointed chin. On her head, she had long blonde hair and had visible hair on her underarm. Shortly after entering the chamber, the female humanoid then began to force acts on Antonio. When they were finished, Antonio describes a feeling of disgust washing over him as the creature began to rub her stomach and then point upwards. Following this experience, Antonio was then given back his clothes by the other humanoids and was given a tour of the ship. While taking this tour, he had attempted to steal a small clock-like device to show as proof of his encounter with the alien race, but was quickly caught by the creatures and was immediately escorted off of the ship. As the ship left, he quickly returned home to find that more than 4 hours had passed since the ship touched down, one of the strange side effects he would soon begin experiencing. Following the encounter, Antonio began showing signs of extreme radiation sickness, unaware of what was happening, with growing lesions, nausea, weakness, and terrible headaches. He quickly sought help from a journalist researching these types of encounters and was examined by Dr. Fontes of the National School of Medicine of Brazil. Antonio had originally believed he had caught a form of disease, but was informed that he was suffering from a sickness caused by taking massive doses of radiation at one time. Such levels of radiation sickness would have been impossible to have been exposed to during this time in the 1950s, and would have required Antonio to have gotten hit by direct doses of radiation equal to the amount that would later be experienced at the Chernobyl incident in Ukraine, overwhelmingly proving advanced technologies had been within the vicinity of Antonio Villas-Boas, within the span of time he had claimed the event took place. However, despite this mountain of evidence that more than supports his claims of the strange event, Antonio would still go on to be ridiculed by those around him and would face a number of health issues following the event. Antonio would later go on to become a respected lawyer and, even up to his passing, would claim that what he experienced was completely factual and not at all a hoax. Caitlin Potts left sister a chilling last message before she disappeared. Caitlin Potts, a 27-year-old Indigenous woman, vanished under troubling circumstances in late February 2016. Originally from Alberta, Caitlin was known to those close to her as a bubbly, caring young woman and a devoted mother. Her disappearance from Kelowna, British Columbia, has left her family in anguish, and nearly a decade later, they continue to seek answers. Her mother recently described the pain of her daughter's absence as the most difficult experience of her life, emphasizing the deep love and connection Caitlin shared with her family. The last known communication from Caitlin occurred on February 22, 2016. She had messaged her sister and her roommate, stating that she was in Kelowna and had arranged for a ride to Calgary through an ad on Kijiji, a popular classifieds site. Her intention, according to family members, was to reach Edmonton, where her sister was living. Caitlin had been staying in Enderby, a small town about an hour from Kelowna, where she had been living with a man she had been involved with on and off for the previous 2 years. This man, described by Caitlin's family as abusive, had a documented history of aggression toward her, including an assault charge in 2014. Text messages suggest Caitlin was still in contact with him the day she disappeared, reportedly upset over unpaid money. Despite this history, the man later denied being in a relationship with her, publicly distancing himself from her altogether. Given Caitlin's sudden disappearance and her vulnerable situation, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police's Major Crimes Unit soon took over the case. Authorities reportedly told the family that the situation was being treated as a serious matter and potentially as a criminal case. However, over time, Caitlin's family lost confidence in the investigation. They turned to Indigenous organizations for help, seeking broader support and more pressure for answers. In 2017, surveillance footage surfaced showing Caitlin at a Kelowna shopping mall the day before she was last heard from, but no further developments were made public. Caitlin's case resonates far beyond her own tragic story. She is one of many missing Indigenous women in Canada, a national crisis that has been the subject of growing awareness and concern. While Kelowna is not directly along the infamous Highway of Tears, the structural and systemic issues that plague that region, such as inadequate access to safe transportation, are relevant here. Caitlin had reportedly turned to Kijiji for a ride, a choice that may have left her exposed to unknown risks. It is possible that she was targeted by someone posing as a helpful stranger. Alternatively, some believe the ride was never real and that her disappearance was rooted in the complicated dynamics of her personal life. Yet despite these theories, no firm answers have emerged and critical questions remain. Was the ride genuine? If so, why hasn't the individual who offered it come forward? Caitlin's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the unique vulnerabilities faced by Indigenous women. It also speaks to the urgent need for better services and safe options for women attempting to leave difficult situations. As her loved ones continue their search for the truth, her case stands as a symbol of resilience, unanswered questions, and the enduring impact of systemic neglect. Man attempts to convert the Sentinelese tribe to Christianity. In November 2018, American missionary John Allen Chow set out on a deeply personal and controversial journey. His destination was North Sentinel Island, a remote and heavily restricted area in the Bay of Bengal, home to one of the last uncontacted tribes on Earth, the Sentinelese people. His mission, driven by a strong religious calling, was to share his Christian faith with a community that had lived in isolation for thousands of years. John believed it was his spiritual duty to bring the message of Christianity to the Sentinelese, despite knowing the risks that came with stepping foot on the island. In his writings, John expressed a clear sense of divine calling. He asked whether North Sentinel Island was Satan's last stronghold and felt that the eternal lives of the Sentinelese were in question. He saw the mission as a worthwhile sacrifice, writing passionately about his desire to introduce Jesus to people who had never heard his name. John was not unaware of the dangers. He acknowledged that he might not return, but still pressed forward, believing his efforts were meaningful and necessary. The Sentinelese people are unique in the modern world. As the last truly isolationist tribe, they have rejected all attempts at outside contact. While there have been brief and often unintentional encounters in the past, the tribe has made it clear they wish to remain untouched by the outside world. Historical incidents, such as the 1867 shipwreck of an Indian merchant vessel, showed early signs of their desire to defend their isolation. Survivors of that wreck described being attacked after 3 days on the island. The Sentinelese, with their red-painted noses, short hair, and expressive gestures, left a lasting impression on those few who lived to describe the experience. Knowing this history, John still attempted to approach the island. He paid local fishermen over $300 to bring him close. Once within range, the fisherman warned him not to continue, telling him clearly that he might not survive the encounter. Undeterred, John paddled toward the island in a kayak and tried to engage the tribe by singing Bible verses. His attempts were met with silence and occasional laughter. Tribal members responded with high-pitched whistles and grunts, and at one point, a boy fired an arrow that pierced John's Bible. Despite this, he remained hopeful and temporarily retreated, only to return again. On November 17th, John made his final approach. This time he told the fishermen to leave him behind. As they sailed away, they looked back to see members of the tribe carrying John away. This was the last confirmed sighting of him. In the aftermath, authorities in India opened an investigation, but it was quickly noted that the Sentinelese cannot be prosecuted. It is illegal to attempt contact with the tribe, primarily to protect them from potential illness and disruption. With no immunity to common diseases, even brief exposure could endanger their entire population. For this reason, the Indian government enforces a strict policy of non-interference. Neil MacLeod, who met John during a flight, later reflected on their conversation. He remembered John as a deeply sincere and kind-hearted individual. They spoke about faith and about John's long-term goal of reaching the Sentinelese. According to Neil, John had been preparing for this mission for 3 years. He knew the dangers, but believed strongly in what he was doing. He wasn't pushy or aggressive. Instead, he was warm, engaging, and committed to his beliefs. Neil described John as a real loss, someone whose intentions were sincere, even if the outcome was tragic. Public reaction to John's journey was deeply divided. While some admired his courage and devotion, others were frustrated by what they saw as an avoidable incident. Critics pointed out that John had multiple chances to turn back. Some argued that his mission, though well-intentioned, disregarded the autonomy and safety of the Sentinelese. One online user remarked that the tribe didn't need saving, stating they had lived in harmony with nature and their own beliefs for generations. Beyond the spiritual debate, the Sentinelese themselves continue to intrigue scientists and anthropologists. Despite living in what many would consider primitive conditions, they are remarkably healthy. They exhibit no known genetic disorders, even with a population thought to be quite small. Most isolated populations experience complications over generations due to genetic bottlenecks. However, the Sentinelese show no such signs. After the devastating 2004 tsunami, many assumed the tribe had been wiped out. Yet, they not only survived but seemed to recover with little difficulty. This resilience has baffled researchers. It suggests that the Sentinelese may carry strong, dominant genetic traits that shield them from the complications typically seen in small, isolated populations. Some believe their genetic makeup could hold insights into long-lost traits that once aided human survival before the onset of modern civilization. Their ability to recover from natural disasters, avoid disease despite no modern medicine, and maintain physical health over generations raises important questions about human adaptability and biology. John Allen Chow's story is a complex one, part tragedy, part cautionary tale, and part spiritual reflection. His mission was rooted in a profound sense of purpose, and while some saw it as intrusive, others saw it as an act of deep faith. His journey reignited discussions about cultural preservation, the ethics of missionary work, and the right of isolated communities to remain untouched by the outside world. The Sentinelese people remain a symbol of independence and mystery. Their existence challenges modern assumptions about progress and survival. For now, they continue to live as they always have, protected by distance, nature, and a global consensus that some places and some peoples are best left undisturbed. Last moments caught on CCTV. The CCTV footage, taken on the evening of Saturday 16th of July, initially appears to capture a simple, carefree moment. Rebecca Press and Mark Ashe are seen walking together through the streets of New Tredegar, seemingly relaxed and in good spirits. They were on their way to a local pub, enjoying the warm summer night. To the casual observer, nothing in this brief snapshot of time would suggest that anything was amiss. However, this image would soon become deeply unsettling in hindsight. Just hours later, events took a dark and irreversible turn. Press, who had spent the day drinking and had also taken a number of prescription tablets, began to display erratic behavior. Her mood, once light-hearted, shifted dramatically. At the pub, witnesses described her as becoming increasingly agitated and confrontational. Eventually, she left and returned to her mother's home in Elliotstown, a place that should have offered calm and familiarity. Mark Ashe, a neighbour and friend of the family, had already returned to the house by that time. It was there that tensions quickly escalated. Press became involved in a heated argument with her mother and her brother, which prompted concern from Mr. Ashe. In an attempt to bring the situation under control, he phoned the police, explaining that tensions in the house had reached a serious point. Throughout this chaos, he continued trying to de-escalate matters, acting as a voice of reason. But despite his efforts, the situation intensified. Press, in a moment of emotional volatility, went into the kitchen, retrieved a knife, and inflicted a single wound. She left the house shortly after and later sent a voice message to her boyfriend in which she acknowledged her actions. When questioned by police later that night, she acted confused, asking whether someone had been seriously hurt. In court, it was revealed that Press had a long history of legal trouble, with numerous previous appearances related to past behavior. The image of that summer evening stroll, once innocuous, now carries a haunting significance. It serves as a stark reminder of how quickly a situation can unravel, and how a single moment captured on camera can mask the deep turbulence that lies just beneath the surface. The mysterious cube seen above Texas. In the expansive skies above Texas, where everything seems bigger and more expansive, an unusual sighting captured the attention of witnesses and enthusiasts alike, a mysterious cube-shaped object. This sighting, reported by multiple witnesses across different locations in Texas, has sparked intrigue and speculation about the nature and origin of the unidentified flying object. The first reports came from rural areas near Amarillo and Lubbock, where residents described seeing a peculiar object hovering silently in the sky. Unlike conventional aircraft or celestial bodies, the UFO was characterized by its distinct cubic shape, with sharp edges and symmetrical sides that defied the typical aerodynamic designs of human-made vehicles. Witnesses recounted how the cube-shaped UFO appeared to hover motionless in the air. Some observers noted unusual dark markings on the surface of the object, hinting at advanced technology or unfamiliar symbols that fueled speculation about its advanced origins. News of the cube-shaped UFO spread rapidly through social media platforms and local news outlets, prompting a flurry of eyewitness accounts, amateur photographs, and videos capturing fleeting glimpses of the mysterious object. Amateur astronomers and skywatchers trained their telescopes and cameras on the skies, hoping to document additional sightings or gather more evidence to corroborate the reports. In the days following the initial sightings, researchers into the unknown and aviation were called upon to analyze the available data and provide insights into the phenomenon. Skeptics cautioned against jumping to conclusions, suggesting that the cube-shaped UFO could be a drone, experimental aircraft, or even a rare atmospheric phenomenon that appeared distorted under specific lighting conditions. Black cube-shaped unidentified flying objects present a perplexing anomaly in the realm of aviation. In stark contrast to conventional aircraft that rely on wings or rotor blades for lift, these mysterious objects exhibit a striking geometric precision, manifesting as flawless cubes hovering in the expanse of the atmosphere and having no visible propulsion system. The emergence of such immaculately structured forms not only defies our existing comprehension of propulsion systems and aerodynamic principles, but also poses intriguing challenges to the very foundation of engineering as we know it. The phenomenon surrounding the black cube-shaped UFOs is incredibly intriguing, with a key aspect being the abundance of credible eyewitness testimonies. These accounts stem from a wide array of sources, such as pilots, military servicemen, law enforcement officers, and seasoned observers. Their detailed portrayals consistently describe cube-shaped crafts showcasing sophisticated flight capabilities, including silent hovering and maneuvers that challenge conventional laws of physics. The diversity of these witnesses adds significant weight to the credibility of these encounters, highlighting a pattern that goes beyond mere speculation and instigates a deeper exploration into the enigmatic nature of these mysterious objects. Images and footage recorded by observers depict these mysterious entities in diverse settings and circumstances. Mysterious triangular structure melting out of iceberg. In the remote expanses of northeastern Greenland, where vast icebergs drift silently through frigid Arctic waters, an intriguing discovery was made that sparked global fascination and debate. It began with an amateur explorer, an enthusiast of satellite imagery, who stumbled upon a mysterious triangular structure seemingly emerging from the ice-covered landscape. This discovery, made possible through the lens of Google Earth, captivated the imagination of the public and ignited speculation about its origin and purpose. The individual who found the mysterious object said that they had always been fascinated by the uncharted and the unknown. Armed with a passion for exploration and a keen eye for detail, The man spent countless hours scouring satellite images of remote regions, searching for anomalies and hidden treasures that might elude the casual observer. It was during one of these virtual expeditions, while navigating the icy terrain northeast of Isotok, Greenland, that he stumbled upon the strange triangular structure. The structure appeared to protrude from the surface of a large iceberg, its geometric outlines starkly contrasting against the pristine white backdrop of the Arctic landscape. From the satellite image, it was clear that the structure exhibited precise triangular symmetry, suggesting deliberate design rather than natural formation. Its edges were sharply defined, a testament to its substantial height and solid construction. The man was initially skeptical of the discovery, considering the possibility of an optical illusion or a glitch in the satellite imagery. However, as he meticulously analyzed multiple satellite views from different angles and lighting conditions, the triangular structure remained unmistakably present, consistent in shape and position across various images. Excited yet cautious, he shared his findings with fellow enthusiasts and online communities dedicated to satellite imagery and exploration. The discovery quickly gained traction on social media platforms and discussion forums, where theories and speculations abound about the nature and origin of the mysterious structure. Some hypothesized that the triangular structure could be an ancient artifact buried within the ice, preserved by millennia of Arctic conditions and recently exposed by shifting icebergs or glaciers. The possibility of a lost civilization or prehistoric settlement buried beneath Greenland's icy veneer captured the imagination of those drawn to mysteries of the past. Others speculated more boldly, suggesting that the triangular structure might be of advanced origin, a relic left behind by an advanced alien civilization that visited Earth in ancient times. Proponents of this theory pointed to the structure's geometric perfection and its unexpected location within one of Earth's most remote and inhospitable regions as evidence of an otherworldly connection. The Ossett teleportation case. In the quiet town of Ossett, England, during the 1970s, an unusual event unfolded that continues to baffle those who hear about it. Often overlooked in the broader world of paranormal phenomena, the Ossett teleportation case stands out not for ghostly figures or strange lights in the sky, but for the complete mystery surrounding the sudden disappearance and reappearance of a local woman under circumstances that defied logic. What occurred raised questions about time, space, and the boundaries of human understanding, and to this day, no rational explanation has ever been agreed upon. The case began when a woman, described as living an ordinary life with no history of unusual behavior, vanished from her home without warning. What made her disappearance especially concerning was the time of day and the fact that she had no reason to leave. Hours later, she was found miles away, disoriented, confused, and with no recollection of how she had arrived at the location. Even more perplexing was that the area where she was discovered, an open rural spot, showed only one set of footprints, hers. No tracks led to the place, and none led away. Local authorities were immediately brought in to investigate. At first, they considered conventional explanations. Perhaps she had wandered there in a dazed state and forgotten the journey, but the problem with that theory was the complete lack of physical evidence. No disturbed vegetation, no trails, and no signs that she had traveled by foot or vehicle. The terrain was such that any movement, especially in damp or muddy conditions, would have left a trace. Yet nothing was found. Medical evaluations provided no clear answers. The woman was physically unharmed, showed no signs of confusion beyond what would be expected after a startling experience, and returned to normal soon after. She could not recall walking, being taken, or even leaving her house. Her last memory was of being at home, followed by what she described as a blank space, and then waking up in an unfamiliar location. There were no signs of a struggle or foul play, and no witnesses came forward to say they had seen her during the time she was missing. As speculation grew, so did the theories. Some in the community believed she had experienced a rare psychological episode, while others suggested she had somehow been the subject of an unintentional experiment in teleportation or a shift in reality. More fantastical ideas included time slips. What gave weight to the mystery was the complete lack of supporting evidence for any natural cause. Unlike other missing persons cases, this one left behind an eerie emptiness. No trail, no explanation, just a person who had vanished and returned, seemingly untouched by time. The Ossett teleportation case remains a quiet anomaly in the archives of British unexplained phenomena. It offers no clear answers and no easy explanations. For many, it represents the kind of event that challenges assumptions about reality and reminds us that, despite advances in science and understanding, there are still moments that defy categorization. Whether a glitch in perception, an environmental anomaly, or something far more mysterious, the case continues to stir quiet wonder in those who come across its strange details. The Screaming Skulls of Bettiscombe Manor. Nestled in the quiet countryside of Dorset, England, Bettiscombe Manor is an old and picturesque estate with a long history. But beneath its charming exterior lies one of the country's most unusual and eerie legends, the tale of the Screaming Skull. For generations, locals and visitors alike have whispered about a human skull kept inside the manor, said to unleash terrifying phenomena whenever it is disturbed. The story behind it is steeped in folklore, history, and unexplained events that continue to fuel fascination and unease to this day. According to legend, the skull belonged to a servant brought from the Caribbean in the 18th century. He was said to be a loyal and dedicated worker for the Pinney family, who owned the estate. As his health began to fail, he reportedly made a final request, that upon his passing, his body be returned to his homeland for burial. It was a heartfelt plea tied to deep cultural and spiritual beliefs, and it reflected his longing to rest in familiar soil. However, the request was not honoured. Instead, he was buried in the churchyard near Bettiscombe. Almost immediately afterward, strange and unsettling events began to unfold. Locals claimed to hear moaning and cries coming from the grave, and unexplained illness and misfortune began to affect the household. The disturbances grew in intensity, including loud crashes within the home, objects moving on their own, and an overwhelming sense of unrest that seemed to linger in the air. Eventually, the body was exhumed, and only the skull was brought into the manor, where it was placed in a secure location. From that point on, the phenomena reportedly lessened, but never fully disappeared. The most chilling part of the legend is the skull's reaction to being moved. Over the years, attempts were made to remove or bury it elsewhere, but each time the disturbances allegedly returned with renewed force. One version of the tale describes loud, blood-curdling screams echoing through the house when the skull was taken from its resting place, terrifying those who were present. The sounds were said to stop only when the skull was returned to the manor. Skeptics have long questioned the story, attributing the events to superstition, exaggeration, or coincidence. But even among doubters, the reluctance to interfere with the skull remains. Whether out of respect for tradition, fear of the unknown, or the uncanny persistence of the tale, the skull has been left undisturbed for generations. The family who currently maintains the estate has reportedly chosen not to challenge the legend, allowing the skull to remain in peace. To this day, Bettiscombe Manor is often referred to as the House of the Screaming Skull. The tale continues to captivate the curious, drawing in folklore researchers, ghost hunters, and those intrigued by England's haunted history. The mystery of the skull, its origin, the truth behind the servant's story, and the strange events that surround it, remains unresolved, but the skull itself endures, silently resting in the manor that has become both its prison and its sanctuary. The mystery of the cursed doll of Pulau Ubin. On the quiet, forested island of Pulau Ubin in Singapore, nestled away from the busy mainland, lies one of the country's most mysterious and emotionally charged paranormal sites. At the heart of this mystery is a small shrine containing a porcelain doll dressed in a traditional red outfit and displayed behind glass. While the doll itself appears delicate and still, the stories that surround it have stirred deep intrigue, unease, and reverence among locals and visitors for decades. Known by many as the cursed doll of Pulau Ubin, it is said to house the spirit of a young girl whose story was marked by sorrow and injustice. According to local legend, the girl once lived on the island, possibly during the early part of the 20th century. Her story varies in different versions, but the most commonly told account speaks of a child who was falsely accused of wrongdoing. Fearing punishment and overwhelmed by fear, she ran into the forest and was never seen again. Some say her spirit lingered in the place where she vanished, unable to rest due to the injustice she experienced. Over time, those who passed through that part of the island began to feel a strange presence. Subtle at first, but growing stronger with each visit. The shrine that now houses the doll is believed to have been established to offer the young girl's spirit peace and recognition. A porcelain doll, dressed in red, a color associated with protection and spiritual strength in many Asian cultures, was placed inside a small shelter built in her honor. What began as a humble memorial slowly evolved into a sacred site as visitors began reporting unusual experiences in its presence. People who come to the shrine often describe a sudden shift in the atmosphere as they approach. Some report a heavy emotional feeling, while others feel an unexplained sadness or an overwhelming sense of being watched. There are accounts of visitors being moved to tears for reasons they cannot fully explain. The area surrounding the doll is quiet, yet charged with a kind of stillness that feels different from the rest of the island. Many choose to bring offerings, flowers, toys, or small gifts, as a gesture of respect to the spirit said to inhabit the doll. Despite being known as a cursed doll, the energy associated with it is not considered malicious. Instead, locals speak of the spirit with empathy and reverence, as though the child remains not to harm, but to be remembered. Those who visit with pure intentions and respect are often left with a sense of calm or quiet reflection. However, those who mock or disregard the shrine are said to experience misfortune or unsettling dreams, reinforcing the belief that the spirit is sensitive to how it is treated. The mystery of the cursed doll of Pulau Ubin endures not only because of the paranormal stories attached to it, but because of the emotional resonance it carries. It is a story of loss, remembrance, and the human need to honor those who may have been forgotten. Whether one sees the shrine as a paranormal site or a place of spiritual healing, it stands quietly on the island, inviting those who find it to pause, reflect, and feel. The House of 1,000 Spirits. In the late 1980s, a quiet house in San Pedro, California, became the center of one of the most disturbing and well-documented hauntings in modern American paranormal history. Jackie Hernandez, a young mother seeking a fresh start, moved into a modest home in the coastal neighborhood. What began as a hopeful new chapter quickly turned into a living nightmare as unexplained phenomena began to unfold around her. The house, later dubbed the House of 1,000 Spirits, would become notorious for intense paranormal activity, terrifying not only Jackie, but also those who dared to investigate its mysteries. Soon after moving in, Jackie began to experience unsettling events. Strange noises echoed through the home, disembodied voices that seemed to come from the walls and corners, murmuring in the dead of night. Objects would move on their own. Furniture shifted, lights flickered without cause, and water dripped steadily from the ceilings, despite the absence of any plumbing above. The atmosphere grew heavy, and Jackie often felt as if something unseen was watching her. Her young children too seemed frightened, reacting to things no one else could see. Desperate for answers, Jackie reached out to paranormal researchers. Among them were seasoned investigators who brought with them cameras, audio equipment, and electromagnetic field detectors. What they encountered inside the home defied expectations. One of the most shocking moments occurred when investigators captured what appeared to be ghostly faces and shapes on video, distorted, shifting images that were not visible to the naked eye. The air in the house registered bizarre electromagnetic spikes, far beyond what could be explained by wiring or common electronics. As the investigations continued, the activity escalated. Witnesses described objects levitating or being thrown across rooms. One investigator was nearly choked by a cord that seemed to lift on its own and tighten around his neck. The house seemed to react to human presence with a strange intelligence, responding not only with noise or movement, but with targeted aggression. The sense of unease grew into genuine fear, even for those who were trained to deal with such events. Jackie eventually made the decision to move away from the San Pedro house, hoping to leave the terrifying experiences behind, but the strangeness followed her. Even in her new home, odd occurrences began anew: voices, shadows, and feelings of being watched. This suggested that the haunting was not simply tied to the location, but possibly to Jackie herself. Some theorized that her emotional state or energy may have acted as a kind of magnet, drawing paranormal forces to her wherever she went. The House of 1,000 Spirits remains a topic of fascination for paranormal researchers and enthusiasts. Unlike many ghost stories based on rumor or legend, this case offered physical evidence, photographs, video footage, and multiple witness testimonies. Yet despite all the data collected, no clear explanation has ever been found. Whether the haunting was caused by lingering spirits, emotional energy, or something more mysterious, it stands as one of the most chilling unsolved cases in modern American paranormal history. The Whistler of Columbia River Gorge. In the remote, mist-shrouded trails of the Columbia River Gorge, stretching between Washington and Oregon, a quiet but deeply unsettling mystery lingers among the trees. Hikers and campers who venture deep into the wooded paths often speak of a strange phenomenon, an eerie, persistent whistling sound that seems to follow them wherever they go. Referred to by some as the Whistler of the Columbia River Gorge, this unexplained sound has become a whispered legend among those familiar with the region. Though it leaves no physical trace, its effect on those who experience it is profound, unsettling, and unforgettable. The reports are remarkably consistent. The whistling is described as a clear, steady tone, human-like in its rhythm, but too distant and constant to be attributed to any natural source. It often begins without warning, usually in the deeper parts of the forest where the usual sounds of birds and insects give way to an eerie quiet. The sound does not come from a fixed direction. Instead, it seems to move with the listener, always just out of reach, as if circling them from a distance. No matter how quickly a person walks or in which direction they turn, the whistling maintains its position, neither growing louder nor fading completely away. Some hikers have reported trying to chase the sound, convinced that a person must be making it, yet no one is ever found. Others have tried to ignore it, only to feel an overwhelming sense of being observed, as though the whistling is not just a sound, but an active presence. A few have spoken of an odd pressure in the air or a tingling sensation along the back of the neck when the sound begins. Though the whistler has never been linked to harm, the psychological effect is enough to drive some visitors back to their vehicles, unwilling to spend another moment in the forest. Attempts to document the sound have only added to the mystery. People have brought recording devices in hopes of capturing proof, but the results are always the same. Either the devices malfunction entirely, or they record nothing but silence. Batteries drain unexpectedly, files become corrupted, or strange static appears in place of the expected audio. For those who believe in the paranormal, this failure to document the sound only deepens the sense that the whistler is something beyond ordinary understanding. Local folklore has grown around the phenomenon. Some say the whistling is a spirit guarding the forest, warning people not to stray too far from the path. Others believe it to be a residual echo of something ancient, imprinted on the land by events long forgotten. There are even tales of those who tried to whistle back and claimed the sound responded. Whether a trick of acoustics, an undiscovered natural occurrence, or something more otherworldly, the Whistler of Columbia River Gorge remains an enduring mystery. It offers no answers, only the haunting memory of a sound that shouldn't be there, yet somehow is. Those who hear it leave changed, their experience echoing long after the forest has fallen silent once again. The mystery of the Hensborough Light. In the quiet countryside of Cornwall, in a remote field near Hensborough, a mysterious phenomenon has lingered for more than half a century. Known to locals simply as the Hensborough Light, this unexplained presence has become a part of the area's folklore, whispered about in pubs and passed down through generations. The light appears only at night, usually in the stillness of early morning hours, and behaves in ways that defy simple explanation. It floats above the ground, pulses softly as if alive, and then vanishes without a sound. What sets the Hensborough Light apart from other unexplained phenomena is not just its longevity, but its elusive nature. Many who have seen it describe a glowing orb, neither too bright nor too dim, hovering in silence before fading away or shooting off into the darkness. Attempts to photograph it have consistently failed. Some say cameras freeze up or refuse to focus, while others report that batteries drain unexpectedly, just as the light appears. Even more unusual are the stories of time distortion, where observers feel as though only moments have passed, when in fact they've stood in the field for hours. Scientists and paranormal investigators have visited the site over the years, hoping to find a rational explanation. Weather balloons, reflections, and bioluminescent insects have all been considered. Some suggested atmospheric phenomena like ball lightning, but none of these theories have accounted for the consistency of the sightings or the strange technological failures experienced by those who try to document it. Even controlled studies have come up empty, with equipment that functions perfectly elsewhere suddenly failing without cause in the vicinity of the light. For many locals, scientific explanations have never quite captured the heart of the mystery. They believe the Hensborough light is not just an unexplained natural event, but something spiritual or otherworldly. Some say it is a spirit light, an energy left behind by someone or something connected deeply to the land. Others view it as a kind of earth energy, a natural anomaly connected to the ley lines that some believe crisscross the ancient landscapes of Britain. Cornwall, rich in myth and history, is no stranger to stories of strange lights, standing stones and unseen forces, and the Hensborough light fits comfortably within that tradition. Despite the fear such stories might inspire, the light is not seen as malevolent. Most describe it as quiet, almost curious, and those who have witnessed it speak more of awe than alarm. For some, seeing it has been a deeply personal or even spiritual experience. Farmers, hikers, and passers-by have all shared similar accounts, even when separated by decades. Each encounter is slightly different, yet all are bound by a common sense of mystery. As technology advances and the world becomes increasingly mapped and measured, the Hensborough light remains defiantly unclassified. It floats above its quiet field, pulsing gently in the night, reminding all who see it that some mysteries still resist explanation. In an age of answers, it offers the rare gift of wonder. The Silver Queen Hotel, Room 11. In the heart of Virginia City, Nevada, stands the Silver Queen Hotel, a historic establishment that has seen the passage of time, the bustle of the old mining boom, and, according to many, the lingering presence of something not quite of this world. Among its many rooms, one stands out as particularly mysterious. Room 11. For decades, guests and investigators alike have reported strange phenomena in this room, all seemingly centered around the spirit of a woman known as Rosie. Believed to have been a working girl during the 1800s, Rosie's presence has become a defining feature of the Silver Queen's paranormal reputation. The stories surrounding Rosie are both intriguing and unsettling. Guests who have stayed in Room 11 often speak of unexplained events, mirrors reflecting a figure that is not in the room, the sound of soft crying during the night, and even the distinct sensation of someone sitting on the edge of the bed when no one is there. Some visitors have woken in the middle of the night to a heavy, sad atmosphere, as though they were not alone. Though no harm ever comes to the guests, the feeling is enough to leave a lasting impression. Paranormal investigators who have explored Room 11 have documented unusual readings. Sudden temperature drops, unexplained cold spots, and fluctuations in electromagnetic fields have all been recorded within the room's walls. Most compelling are the EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, captured during investigations. These audio recordings have included what some claim are faint words or whispers, with one name repeated more than once: Rosie. These phenomena, though subtle, continue to draw paranormal enthusiasts and curious travelers year after year. The hotel's connection to Virginia City's wild and storied past only adds to the depth of the mystery. During the silver rush of the 19th century, Virginia City was a booming mining town filled with saloons, miners, entertainers, and those seeking their fortune. In that context, Rosie is believed to have been a woman whose life was closely tied to the hotel, possibly even living and working there. According to legend, her story ended tragically within the walls of Room 11, and her spirit may have remained behind, tethered by emotion or memory. While some skeptics suggest the occurrences are merely the result of old pipes, creaky floorboards, or suggestibility fueled by the room's reputation, the consistency of the reports makes it difficult to dismiss entirely. Over the years, countless unrelated guests have described nearly identical experiences without prior knowledge of the room's haunted history. This pattern, repeated over time and across many individuals, gives weight to the claims that something unusual is indeed taking place. Today, the Silver Queen Hotel embraces its paranormal notoriety, with Room 11 remaining one of its most requested accommodations. Those who stay there do so with a mixture of curiosity and caution, hoping to glimpse something beyond the ordinary. Whether Rosie is truly a spirit lingering from another time, or simply the creation of stories passed down and shaped by belief, the mystery remains. Room 11 continues to invite questions, whispering secrets of the past through creaking floorboards and cold midnight air. The radioactive ghosts of Chernobyl. Since the catastrophic nuclear accident at Chernobyl in 1986, the exclusion zone surrounding the site has remained largely abandoned, a haunting landscape frozen in time. Overgrown buildings, silent streets, and decaying playgrounds in the nearby city of Pripyat serve as solemn reminders of the sudden evacuation that left the area lifeless. Yet, for many who have entered the zone over the years, workers, researchers, explorers, and even security personnel, it seems the land may not be as empty as it appears. Strange reports have surfaced of unexplained activity, leading some to speak of what are now called the radioactive ghosts of Chernobyl. Apparitions are said to roam the ruins, particularly in and around Pripyat. Shadowy figures, often described as wearing old-style gas masks or protective suits, have been glimpsed moving between buildings, standing in windows, or walking through the misty streets. These figures are usually seen from a distance, vanish quickly, and are never found upon further investigation. Visitors often report an overwhelming sense of unease or pressure in the air, a sensation that goes beyond the natural tension of standing in a place so heavily marked by disaster. One of the most unsettling aspects of these experiences is the flickering of lights in buildings that have been without electricity for decades. Witnesses claim to have seen faint glows through windows, sudden bursts of illumination in hallways, and even fully lit rooms that plunge back into darkness the moment they are approached. These lights appear randomly and without any clear source, further deepening the sense that something beyond understanding lingers in the silence. What makes this mystery even more compelling is that not all reports describe feelings of fear or threat. Some visitors have shared accounts of being protected by unseen forces. In a few cases, people have described narrowly avoiding accidents, falling debris, unstable floors, or sudden changes in weather after feeling compelled to move or stop by a presence they could not see. A few even claim they heard whispers or felt a gentle pull away from danger, suggesting that whatever exists in the zone may not be malevolent. Workers who help maintain the area, including guards and scientists, are often hesitant to speak openly, but anonymous reports hint at similar encounters. Some believe the spirits of those who once lived in Pripyat or responded during the disaster have never truly left, their energy bound to the place by emotion or circumstance. Others propose that the intense radiation and trauma imprinted something into the environment, echoes of the past that replay in fragments, like a memory etched into the land itself. Whether these occurrences are residual energy, active hauntings, or phenomena that defy current scientific understanding, the radioactive ghosts of Chernobyl have become part of the zone's eerie legacy. The site stands not only as a warning of human error, but also as a place where the past and present seem to overlap in quiet, mysterious ways. In the shadows of shattered buildings and among the overgrown streets, something waits, silent, watchful, and unexplained. Disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. Since her last sighting on June 22, 1983, following a music class in Rome, 15-year-old Emanuela Orlandi, the daughter of a Vatican official, has remained missing. In the theories surrounding Orlandi's disappearance, amateur investigators have accused various individuals and groups of being responsible for her disappearance, and despite the fact that the case has never been resolved and she has never even been located, disturbing new evidence has brought the case back to light. For the first time in over 35 years, a promising 2019 lead involving bones found in Vatican City that were thought to be hers appeared to be leading authorities in the right path. But investigators' hopes were soon crushed once more. Even now, the mystery surrounding Emanuela Orlandi's disappearance is still unsolved and unsettling. Although they lived in a small, close-knit neighborhood where their father was a powerful figure, Emanuela Orlandi's brother Pietro claimed that they had a Vatican upbringing and that they felt safest in the world. However, on June 22, 1983, their home turf proved to be anything but safe. She was studying the flute 3 days a week at a nearby music school and that's exactly what she was doing the day she disappeared. She arrived in class and spoke with her sister afterwards, but she never returned home. Her last known communication with anyone was that phone call to her sister. The following day, Emanuela Orlandi was formally declared missing, and as soon as any tips came in, the inquiry was launched. Particularly, 2 tips, one from June 25th and another from June 28th, seemed to point investigators in the right direction. Referring to himself as Pierluigi, the first caller claimed to have seen Orlandi that day in Rome and even gave specifics about her attire and flute that led detectives to conclude he was telling the truth. He continued by saying that Orlandi had told her sister that the girl, who was going by the name Barbarella, had fled from home in order to sell Avon goods. On June 28th, the second caller reported to the police that he had also met a young woman who had run away from home and went by the name Barbara. This man's account of seeing her at a pub close to the music school seems plausible. However, subsequent informants began discussing a plot involving the Grey Wolves, a Turkish organization who was planning to take Emanuela Orlandi and then trade her for one of their own assassins who had been imprisoned for firing at the Pope 2 years prior. To explain what transpired, several explanations have been proposed. Considering the Vatican and its surroundings are a center of mafia and religious influence, those organizations are frequently viewed with distrust. The Banda della Magliana, a criminal organization with headquarters in Rome and commanded by Enrico de Pedis, is at the center of most mafia hypotheses. According to the notion, the syndicate determined that holding the daughter of a Vatican official hostage would be the best method to recover the vast sums of money they had borrowed to the Vatican Bank but were not receiving in return. This theory has been bolstered by anonymous information to the authorities, and de Pedis' ex-girlfriend later went public with her accusation that he told her he had taken Orlandi. However, hard evidence is scant, and a police check of the gangster's grave, which one tipster had suggested might yield DNA evidence supporting the hypothesis, produced no results. There appears to be more evidence supporting the Grey Wolves idea. On May 13, 1981, Grey Wolf Mehmet Ali Aga attempted to take out Pope John Paul II in the Vatican by firing at him 4 times, but was apprehended right away. In the weeks after Orlandi vanished, a number of anonymous calls to the authorities raised the possibility that Orlandi was being held by Turkish militants with the intention of trading her for Agca. One scenario regarding the Orlandi case, and possibly the most unsettling claim, is that Emanuela Orlandi and other girls were taken by the Vatican. According to the Telegraph, the hypothesis goes on to say that these parties included foreign ambassadors as well. The accusation can't be completely discounted, though, because the source of it was Father Gabriele Amoth, the senior exorcist for the Vatican, and a man personally nominated by John Paul II. In an attempt to eventually solve this mystery, officials have pursued numerous leads and responded to a large number of tips in the nearly 40 years since Emanuela Orlandi vanished. Maybe the most thrilling tip of all was the 2019 letter that purported to indicate her final resting location. Early in the year, Laura Scrow, the attorney for the Orlandi family, got a very sinister note that included a picture of a tomb under the Vatican and instructions to look where the angel is pointing, referring to the marble angel that was watching over the crypt in question. The Vatican's top officials took notice of the anonymous tip, and spokesman Alessandro Giusotti intervened to handle the matter delicately. The fact that scientific examinations conducted on the tomb after the letter was sent indicated that it had been opened at least once recently enough for Orlandi's bones to have been hidden within, is what made this tip so intriguing. Scrow added that she had been able to verify that some people knew there was a chance Emanuela Orlandi had been hidden in the tomb in a letter to the Vatican. The fact that flowers had been left at the tomb site provided even more proof that anonymous individuals had been paying visits. Now, it was just a matter of searching the crypt to see if Emanuela Orlandi's remains were indeed within. The Orlandi family had previously had their hopes raised by an anonymous tip before the angel letter became public in 2019. The family most recently held its breath in unison when the Vatican found human remains on its grounds on October 2018, only to be disappointed to learn that the remains belonged to unrelated individuals. Regretfully, this occurred once more in July 2019 when no remains were found during the tomb search. Alessandro Giusotti, a spokesman for the Vatican, stated that the entrance to the tomb opened onto a large subterranean area that was completely empty and had no human remains. It was devastating news for the Orlandi family, who had spent nearly 40 years patiently and devotedly looking for the lost girl's remains. Pietro Orlandi, the brother, stated that he was relieved that Emanuela was not there. He also mentioned that his family has become accustomed to the illusions and disillusions associated with this pointless pursuit. Even so, it is nevertheless notable that the Vatican abruptly changed their mind about cooperating in this case, even if nothing was discovered. Pietro Orlandi claimed that after pleading with the Vatican several times to help with his sister's disappearance, he was positively surprised when they eventually acceded. It was suggested by Pietro Orlandi that the Vatican's denial of assistance amounted to an admission that there is a possibility of internal responsibility on their part. However, despite the Vatican's assistance, the case of Emanuela Orlandi's disappearance remains unsolved. The petrified snake of Naga Cave. The mystery of the Naga Cave in Thailand has captivated thousands across the globe, thanks in large part to a series of viral photographs that seem to reveal something extraordinary. The images, shared across social media platforms, depict a rock formation that closely resembles the enormous coiled body of a snake, complete with scale-like textures carved naturally into the stone. At the same time, another photograph, often confused as being part of the same location, shows what appears to be the head of a massive serpent, though this specific formation is actually located in Laos. Still, the connection between the two images fueled public curiosity and opened the door to a flood of theories about the true nature of the Naga Cave and the legends surrounding it. One of the most popular and widely discussed ideas is that the snake-like rock in the Naga Cave may be a mud fossil, a term used by some to describe naturally preserved, hardened remnants of once-living organisms or their body parts. According to this theory, what appears to be a rock may actually be the petrified body of a giant serpent from an era long forgotten. The scale-like textures, the way the body seems to twist and turn through the terrain, and the cave's isolated sacred location have all added weight to this speculation. While science does not currently support the mud fossil hypothesis, in this context, the visual impact of the images has left many open to alternative possibilities. Adding to the mystery, shortly after the photos of the Naga Cave went viral, locals reported that the site was abruptly closed to the public. Authorities stated that this was due to vandalism in the area, a claim that seemed straightforward at first. However, residents living near the cave began to report unusual activity around the time of the closure. Several witnesses claimed to have seen black vans parked near the cave entrance, and there were whispers that teams had been conducting studies or collecting data. With no official statements released regarding the nature of this activity, speculation quickly grew. Some believed the site was being examined for potential archaeological significance, while others theorized that something had been discovered that warranted secrecy. The Naga Cave holds a spiritual significance in Thai folklore. In Buddhist and regional beliefs, the Naga is a serpent-like being, often considered a protector or guardian, and is frequently associated with rivers, mountains, and caves. The cave's name itself is a direct reference to this mythological creature, which has long been part of local tradition. For those familiar with the stories, the possibility that the cave could be a resting place or representation of a Naga is not merely poetic, it is deeply meaningful. Whether the formation in Naga Cave is a natural wonder sculpted by wind and time, or something far more mysterious, remains an open question. What is certain is that the cave has inspired awe, debate, and spiritual reflection. The unusual closure, the viral images, and the cultural context have all combined to turn the Naga Cave into a modern mystery, one that continues to stir the imagination of those who seek answers in the ancient stones of the earth. The mystery of the Dorrigo apparition. In the misty hills near Dorrigo, a quiet town in New South Wales, Australia, a mystery has lingered for over 2 decades. Along the rural roads that wind through the countryside, drivers have reported eerie encounters with a strange figure that seems to appear out of nowhere. Known locally as the Dorrigo apparition, this phenomenon has become one of the region's most unsettling and persistent modern-day mysteries. Despite years of sightings, the identity or origin of the figure remains unknown, and no clear explanation has ever been agreed upon. Witnesses often describe the figure as tall and mist-like, with a faint, glowing outline. It typically appears in the middle of the road during the late hours of the night, often on quiet stretches with no street lighting. Drivers say the apparition is human-shaped but lacks clear detail, more like a glowing silhouette than a solid person. The figure will often stand still, seemingly looking toward the approaching vehicle, and then vanish without a trace. For those behind the wheel, the experience is both startling and surreal. Many drivers who have encountered the Dorigo apparition report feeling an overwhelming sense of urgency to swerve or stop, genuinely believing a real person is standing in the road. Yet when they pull over and investigate, they find nothing. No footprints, no movement, and no trace of anyone ever being there. The roads are often damp or foggy, which adds to the eerie ambience, but the stories remain consistent even in clearer conditions. What makes the phenomenon especially strange is that sightings come from a wide variety of people, locals, travelers, young and old, all describing similar experiences. Over time, the legend of the apparition has become embedded in local folklore. Some residents believe the area is haunted, perhaps tied to a tragic event from long ago, though no single story has been universally accepted as the source. Others suggest that the region's unique geography and weather patterns might create optical illusions, refractions of headlights, or natural fog formations that trick the human eye. While this could explain some sightings, it doesn't account for the vivid detail and emotional responses reported by those who have seen the figure up close. There are even those who consider the Dorigo apparition something more spiritual or symbolic, a guardian presence, a warning, or a messenger of some kind. Some who've encountered it have said they felt an odd sense of peace afterward, rather than fear, as if the experience was meant to awaken something within them. Others report a lingering unease, as though they had brushed against something far beyond human comprehension. The contrast in emotional reactions only adds to the mystery. Despite technological advances and modern vehicles equipped with cameras and dash cams, no definitive footage of the apparition has been captured. Equipment either fails to record at the critical moment, or the figure simply does not appear on playback. This continued lack of evidence keeps the story alive, suspended between local legend and potential reality. Whatever its true nature, the Dorigo apparition continues to be one of Australia's most quietly chilling mysteries. Its presence on those lonely rural roads invites drivers into a moment of strangeness that lingers long after the figure fades. It stands as a reminder that even in a well-mapped world, there are still places touched by the unknown. The haunting of the Black Forest House. In the 1990s, a seemingly ordinary home nestled in the pine-covered region of Black Forest, Colorado, became the center of one of the most intense and perplexing paranormal cases in the United States. What started as an exciting new beginning for a family soon turned into a prolonged experience of fear, confusion, and deep mystery. The haunting of the Black Forest House went far beyond the occasional creak or cold spot. It involved phenomena so extreme that not only paranormal investigators, but even government-affiliated contractors took an interest. Despite years of study and documentation, no definitive explanation has ever been confirmed, and the home remains an enduring mystery in the world of unexplained events. The family who moved into the house expected a peaceful life in the Colorado countryside. But shortly after settling in, strange things began to occur. Lights would flicker with no electrical explanation. Doors opened and closed on their own. Objects were found moved or rearranged. Shadowy figures would dart across rooms or linger in the corners of vision, vanishing before anyone could focus on them. More disturbing were the disembodied voices, whispers, conversations, even laughter, that echoed through the halls, despite no one else being in the house. The family also reported the unmistakable sensation of being watched, especially at night. Some described feeling touched or tugged at by unseen hands, which added an uncomfortable layer of personal intrusion to the experience. Initially, the family questioned their own perceptions. They had the house inspected, hoping for rational answers: faulty wiring, drafty windows, perhaps even the stress of moving. But the events not only continued, they intensified. Lights turned on and off at will. Electronic devices behaved erratically. Pets acted afraid, refusing to enter certain rooms. Cameras set up by the family captured strange energy distortions, unexplained light patterns, and in some cases, what appeared to be human faces or full apparitions manifesting in the frame. As word of the haunting spread, paranormal researchers began to visit the site. Investigators brought specialized equipment and documented temperature drops, electromagnetic fluctuations, and audio anomalies. Some of the photos taken during these sessions revealed ghostly figures, including one that appeared to show a transparent man standing in a doorway. There were also reports of unknown presences brushing past people or breathing near their ears. One investigator stated that the house seemed to act like a magnet for energy, both emotional and environmental, possibly making it a kind of hotspot for paranormal activity. What made this case even more unusual was the interest it drew from outside the world of ghost hunters. A few government-affiliated researchers, some rumored to be connected with experimental surveillance or remote viewing programs, reportedly visited the property. Though their findings were never made public, their involvement added an extra layer of intrigue to an already chilling situation. Whether they were exploring potential natural explanations or something far more unusual was never clarified. Through it all, the family remained in the house, documenting their experiences and working with investigators to try and make sense of what was happening. They were not looking for fame or attention, they simply wanted peace and understanding. Yet, even with numerous witnesses, hours of footage and dozens of first-hand accounts, no one has ever been able to definitively explain the origin or purpose of the phenomena occurring in the Black Forest house. To this day, the mystery endures. The home still stands, and its reputation as one of America's most haunted houses continues. Some believe the land itself may carry a kind of residual energy, perhaps tied to events long forgotten. Others suspect some type of overlap or intense psychic energy. Whatever the cause, the Black Forest haunting remains an extraordinary example of a paranormal event that refuses to fade, a reminder that some mysteries are not so easily solved. The Humpty Doo poltergeist. In the early 1990s, a quiet home in Humpty Doo, a small rural town near Darwin in Australia's Northern Territory, became the epicenter of one of the country's most intense and baffling paranormal cases. What began as a few odd disturbances quickly escalated into a months-long episode of violent and unexplained activity that drew the attention of media outlets, paranormal investigators, and even law enforcement. The Humpty Doo poltergeist case is remembered not only for the sheer scale of the disturbances, but for the credibility of the witnesses who observed them firsthand. The property, a modest house occupied by a small group of residents, gave little outward indication that anything unusual was going on. But behind closed doors, those living there reported a growing number of terrifying phenomena. Objects would suddenly fly across rooms with incredible force, glassware shattered spontaneously, and furniture, sometimes heavy, solid items, moved on their own. What made the case even more disturbing was the presence of small fires that would ignite without an obvious source. These fires appeared in random locations, including on furniture, curtains, and even in mid-air, only to extinguish themselves or be put out before causing major harm. Initially, the residents believed there had to be a logical explanation, perhaps a prank, faulty wiring, or even stress, but the incidents continued, becoming more violent and frequent. Doors slammed with unnatural force, religious items were flung from walls, and strange knocks echoed through the house without a visible cause. At one point, a full-sized refrigerator was reported to have moved across the floor with no one near it. The power and unpredictability of the phenomena deeply unsettled everyone involved. As word of the activity spread, it attracted a range of visitors, from skeptical journalists to curious neighbors and professional paranormal investigators. What set this case apart from many others was the number of credible witnesses who testified to seeing the events unfold in real time. Police officers who responded to emergency calls described watching objects move as if thrown by invisible hands. Journalists who visited the home to cover the story reported being physically struck by flying items. These were not easily dismissed claims from frightened residents. They were observations from trained professionals, recorded and documented under controlled conditions. Investigators searched for signs of hoaxes or trickery, but found nothing. No hidden wires, no trapdoors, and no logical mechanism by which the activity could have been faked. Multiple religious blessings, spiritual cleansings, and cultural rituals were performed in an attempt to stop the disturbances, but for months, the events continued with unpredictable intensity. It was as if the house itself had become charged with an invisible, uncontrollable energy. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the haunting stopped. No final dramatic event marked the end, only a quiet return to normalcy. Residents moved out, and the house faded back into anonymity. No new incidents were reported in the following years, and no firm conclusion was ever reached. Theories have ranged from poltergeist activity caused by emotional energy to unknown environmental factors, but none have explained the full range of phenomena. The Humpty Doo poltergeist remains one of Australia's most compelling unsolved mysteries. It stands out for its intensity, the number of credible witnesses involved, and the sheer physicality of the events that took place. Whether viewed as a case of genuine paranormal activity or something yet to be understood by science, it serves as a powerful reminder that some forces remain beyond easy explanation. The events at that small house in Humpty Doo left a lasting impression, not only on those who lived through it, but on anyone who hears the story and wonders how such things could happen and why. The mysterious beast of Gévaudan. In the rugged and remote wilderness of 18th century France, a shadowy figure stalked the countryside, striking fear into the hearts of villagers and leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Known as the Beast of Gévaudan, this mysterious creature became the stuff of legend, captivating the imagination of the populace and inspiring a frantic hunt to rid the land of its terrifying presence. Yet, despite the efforts of hunters and soldiers, the true identity and nature of the beast remain shrouded in mystery, leaving behind a legacy of fear and fascination that endures to this day. A fearsome creature made rural areas of central France its hunting grounds between 1764 and 1767. The beast, who frightened the entire nation for 3 years by claiming the lives of both sheep and children, managed to escape from steel jaw traps and beats. On June 13, 1764, the panic started. A 14-year-old girl from the Ardèche village of Les Hubacs was eaten by a ferocious beast on that exact day. There have been previous reports of wolf attacks in the Gévaudan, a large area of undulating hills and verdant plains that is home to 20,000 Canis lupus, no less. But after that day, attacks on young cowherds or the daughters of shepherds were frequent. Fearful whispers began to circulate, attributing the cause to a hideous being, far larger than any other wolf, possessing lion's paws, horns, and enormous fangs. A hyena, a bear, a panther, or even a supernatural being was what several witnesses thought the object was instead of a wolf. People still believed in werewolves, vampires, and ghosts at the time. Fearing for their lives, parishioners sought safety in nearby churches, where clergy prayed for God's pardon and advised them to reflect on their transgressions. Meanwhile, the toll among the impoverished children from the abandoned valleys increased gradually as the number of casualties increased. Urban stories and myths about the beast quickly emerged in the region, which had just seen plagues, hunger, and the devastation of the 7 Years' War. It was thought that the Gévaudan were likely cursed. Initially, the peasants reacted by keeping their boys and girls indoors till later. With the beast on the loose, it was no longer safe for kids to go on their own adventures. Their parents carried pitchforks, pikes, and rods as they wandered the countryside in groups. Some prayed for hours on end while on their knees. However, the most effective response was presumably provided by the municipal government, who in late 1764 authorized the installation of beats and traps. By winter 1764, the first soldiers appointed by the king, a group of mounted infantrymen known as dragoons, had arrived in the area at the request of the intendant of Languedoc. Unfortunately, they were unable to function properly due to the thick amounts of snow. They started hunting again in early 1765, but their efforts eventually proved fruitless since the beast was always able to get past their nets and traps. The wolf's appetite seemed unabated, and it became more brazen. It attacked 7 Villeray youngsters, ages 8 to 12, on January 12th. Nevertheless, the children overcame all obstacles to force the beast to flee, while the adults were unable to. A royal scholarship subsequently helped one of the youngsters participating in that valiant deed, and he went on to become a lieutenant in the Royal Artillery Corps. It even infuriated King Louis XV himself. If someone could bring him the creature's head, he would reward them with £6,000, the equivalent to £433,000 or $512,000. The best wolf catchers in the nation grabbed their weapons and silver bullets and headed towards the monster-infested forests of Gévaudan. But they were once more unsuccessful, and while the negative news was causing unease and fear throughout the region, phony reports mocking French incompetence were published in British publications. The legendary hunter François Antoine, the king's designated gun-bearer, was the only person who appeared to be able to put an end to the creature's terrifying reign. The reputation of Antoine was fierce. As soon as he arrived in Gévaudan in June 1765, he studied maps and tracked footsteps. After weeks of relentless beats, on September 21st, his squad took out a large animal. The creature measured 3 feet in height, 6 feet in length, and 140 pounds in weight. The embalmed body was sent for Louis to view, and Antoine was overjoyed and confident that he had defeated the notorious Gévaudan monster. Regretfully, the subsequent days validated his assertion. 3 weeks later, attacks returned with increased ferocity. In the aftermath of the beast's demise, speculation about its true nature and origins continued to swirl, with theories ranging from the plausible to the outlandish. Some believed it to be a lone wolf or pack of wolves driven to desperation by hunger and habitat loss, while others speculated that it may have been a rare and undiscovered species of predator native to the region. Yet, despite the countless theories and conjectures put forth over the years, the true identity of the beast of Gévaudan remains a mystery, lost to the mists of time and the fog of legend. The mystery of the Bluebell Hill phantom hitchhiker. Along a quiet stretch of road near Bluebell Hill in Kent, England, one of the country's most enduring paranormal mysteries continues to capture the imagination of drivers and ghost story enthusiasts alike. For over 6 decades, reports have surfaced of a spectral figure, a young woman, who appears suddenly at the roadside or directly in the path of oncoming vehicles. Sometimes she flags down passing cars, other times she stands in the road, only to vanish moments before impact. In several chilling accounts, drivers have even claimed to pick up a hitchhiker who quietly disappears mid-journey. Despite the passage of time, sightings persist, and the mystery of the Bluebell Hill phantom hitchhiker remains unsolved. The earliest and most often cited stories date back to the 1960s, when a serious car accident occurred on or near Bluebell Hill. A young bride-to-be, according to local memory, lost her life in the crash just days before her wedding. This tragedy became the basis for a legend, with many linking the ghostly appearances to the spirit of the woman who never made it to her big day. Whether or not the timeline aligns perfectly, the story struck a chord and began to echo through the decades, gaining new life with each fresh report. What makes this case particularly eerie is the consistency across different witness testimonies. Many drivers recall seeing a distressed woman wearing a white or pale dress standing at the side of the road. Others claim she suddenly appears in front of their moving car, prompting them to swerve or brake hard, only to realize there is no one there. In some of the most vivid accounts, motorists have pulled over to offer the woman a ride. She accepts silently, sits in the back seat, and then vanishes somewhere along the route without opening the door or speaking a word. In most versions of the story, the encounters happen at night, often in poor weather, which adds to the atmosphere of unease. Some drivers, believing they have hit a real person, exit their vehicle in a panic, only to find no sign of injury or anyone at all. These moments are often followed by an unshakable feeling of cold or emotional heaviness. Despite these alarming experiences, no physical evidence or clear explanation has ever surfaced. Over the years, paranormal investigators have explored the site and collected stories, but no consensus has been reached about the origin or nature of the sightings. Some believe it is a residual haunting, where a traumatic moment has become imprinted on the location itself. Others suggest it could be an intelligent presence seeking resolution, or even a form of collective memory expressed through shared cultural expectation. Regardless of the theory, the Bluebell Hill phantom hitchhiker continues to be one of the most reported and emotionally charged ghost sightings in the UK. It serves as a powerful reminder of how certain places seem to carry echoes of the past, stories that refuse to fade, and spirits that may still walk among us, waiting to be understood. The mystery of the Azores underwater pyramid. The discovery of the Azores underwater pyramid remains one of the most intriguing and underexplored mysteries in modern archaeology. Found in the Atlantic Ocean between the islands of Terceira and São Miguel in the Azores, this mysterious structure has captivated the imaginations of researchers, explorers, and alternative theorists alike. Unlike the many pyramids seen above ground across continents, the idea of a pyramid submerged beneath ocean waters opens the door to questions about ancient civilizations, forgotten history, and the very timeline of human development. The person credited with uncovering this peculiar structure is Diocleciano Silva, a Portuguese sailor who was reportedly out fishing when he made the discovery. While using the ship's bathymetric equipment to survey the ocean floor, Silva noticed something highly unusual, a large geometric shape appearing on the sonar screen. The shape was symmetrical and sharply defined, resembling an almost perfect pyramid. What startled him further was its exact alignment. According to Silva, the pyramid's vertices pointed precisely north and south, in a manner eerily similar to the famous Giza pyramids of Egypt. This discovery immediately raised questions about whether the structure could be natural or artificial in origin. Despite its potentially groundbreaking implications, the discovery of the Azores pyramid has received limited attention from mainstream scientific institutions. Silva's initial report caught the interest of the public and was briefly mentioned in local Portuguese media, but efforts to investigate the site further were soon abandoned. The Portuguese Navy responded to the discovery by stating that the object was most likely a natural formation, specifically a seamount, a kind of underwater mountain formed by volcanic activity. They based this conclusion on sonar data collected over the years in the area. However, many remain unconvinced by this explanation. The geometric precision, the symmetrical angles, and the perfect orientation of the structure suggest that it is unlikely to be a product of random geological processes. In fact, estimates of the pyramid's age, ranging from 12,000 to 20,000 years, place it within the end of the last ice age, a period of significant change in both climate and sea levels. If the structure is truly that old, it may belong to a chapter of history that predates recorded civilizations. What adds even more intrigue to this mystery is the broader archaeological context of the Azores. Although the islands are considered remote, excavations and surveys in the region have revealed fascinating artifacts, including megalithic structures, sanctuaries believed to be of Carthaginian origin, Roman inscriptions, and ancient cave art. These discoveries hint at the possibility that the Azores once played a more important role in pre-modern human history than is currently understood. Nonetheless, official interest in investigating the pyramid further appears to have faded. According to Admiral Fernando Pires, head of the maritime zone of the Azores, the location had not been subjected to any formal investigation due to both practical challenges and political hesitations. He mentioned that the probes would not have been effective at the time and might have even interfered with marine navigation. Yet, without detailed scientific exploration, the true nature of the pyramid remains speculative. The lack of historical record from any known local or ancient culture in the region that practiced pyramid building only deepens the mystery. There is no known civilization near the Azores with an architectural tradition capable of constructing such a structure, which raises the possibility that the pyramid predates known history or was built by a seafaring culture that left no trace. In the end, the Azores underwater pyramid stands as an open question. Is it a natural geological formation, an ancient structure swallowed by time and sea, or something else entirely? Jackson Brent Garcia, an 18-year-old individual, went missing on December 26, 2020, in Sumter County, South Carolina. The last known sighting of him was on Ithaca Drive, where he left his cousin's residence that evening. When Garcia vanished, he was residing in Sumter, South Carolina, alongside his grandmother. It is worth noting that he is commonly known by the nickname Brent. This mysterious disappearance has raised many questions and demands a thorough investigation. According to his family, who depict him as a compassionate and family-centric individual, it is highly atypical for Brent to disappear without reaching out to anyone. On the auspicious day of December 25, 2020, Jackson Brent Garcia commenced the morning in the delightful company of his cherished family. indulging in the joyful merriment of Christmas festivities and eagerly unwrapping the thoughtfully exchanged presents. Between the hours of 4 and 5:30 in the afternoon, Garcia engaged in separate telephone conversations with both his brother and grandmother. During these interactions, he communicated to them that he was currently occupied with playing games at his cousin's residence and assured them of his imminent return to his own home. Following his failure to return home, Garcia's grandmother made several attempts to reach out to him, endeavoring to establish contact. Despite her persistent efforts, Garcia chose not to answer the phone, leaving his grandmother in a state of worry and concern. In the evening of December 26, 2020, Garcia was sighted for the last time by his cousin at his residence situated on Ithaca Drive in Sumter, South Carolina. This particular sighting occurred while both of them were spending time outdoors with their family pet. At approximately 7 in the evening, his cousin responsibly brought the dog indoors and headed back into the house. However, upon entering, they realized that Garcia, the dog, was mysteriously missing from sight. This sudden disappearance left everyone perplexed and concerned about his whereabouts. According to the available information, Garcia, unfortunately, did not return home, and there have been no updates or communication from him since then. It is worth noting that although his cousin did not witness his departure, it is widely believed that Brent left his location on foot. On the 28th of December in the year 2020, the mother of the individual took the initiative of filing a report concerning their disappearance. During the investigation into the disappearance of Jackson Brent Garcia, authorities have received numerous reports detailing sightings of him around the time he went missing. Authorities in the vicinity where Garcia was last spotted carried out extensive searches, employing aerial surveillance, foot patrols, and the utilization of highly trained K-9 units. According to statements from his family, Garcia had a documented history of anxiety. It is worth noting that his struggles with these conditions were well known among his loved ones. Unfortunately, prior to his disappearance, Garcia neglected to bring along his prescribed medications, which were crucial for stabilizing his health. Following an extensive investigation, law enforcement authorities were unable to uncover any substantive evidence, methods, or motives associated with the mysterious disappearance of Jackson Garcia. Brent's Army, Crime Stoppers, and the Sumter Police Department have come together to offer a substantial reward of $10,000 to anyone who can provide crucial information that will assist in locating Brent. The circumstances of Jackson Brent Garcia's disappearance remain unclear, and his case is currently classified as missing. His case remains unsolved. The mystery of Tabitha Goines. Tabitha Goines, a 39-year-old woman, went missing in Fayetteville, North Carolina on November 24, 2019. Tabitha, who is a mother of 4, vanished without a trace, causing great concern for her family. In the early hours of November 24, 2019, specifically around 12:30, Tabitha departed from the place of residence where she had been staying. While strolling through the dense woods, Tabitha found herself trailing behind her boyfriend. As he abruptly spun around to face her, a wave of confusion washed over him as he realized she had vanished from the area. During that moment, Tabitha was clad in a sleek black zip-up jacket paired with trendy leopard print leggings and completed her outfit with a fashionable combination of grey and orange Nike Air Max sneakers. Dennis Lessersane, the boyfriend of Tabitha, had the unfortunate distinction of being the final individual to have sight of her prior to her mysterious disappearance. According to his account, he claims that he was apprehended by the alcohol law enforcement on the same night she disappeared. He further explains that during the raid, they sought refuge in the nearby woods, where unfortunately, he lost sight of her amidst the chaos. Subsequently, he decided to seek assistance by making a call at one of the neighboring houses in order to arrange for someone to come and pick him up. In light of her disappearance, Lessersane opted against consenting to a polygraph examination and promptly sought legal representation. During an extensive search conducted by the authorities in the vicinity, an important discovery was made consisting of Tabitha's eyeglasses, which she was identified as wearing. On the 23rd of December in the year 2019, law enforcement officials actively carried out a search warrant at a private dwelling located in her apartment block. As part of their efforts to shed light on her sudden disappearance, They urged members of the public to immediately contact the emergency services hotline if they possess any valuable information relating to her disappearance. In the month of February in the year 2020, there occurred an altercation involving Dennis Lessersane and Tabitha's estranged husband, Anthony Goines. Deputies promptly arrived at the scene following an urgent call. Upon their arrival, they discovered Dennis with visible cuts on both his face and neck, necessitating immediate medical attention. It was determined that his injuries required surgical intervention, and he was expeditiously transported to the hospital to undergo a specialized procedure for the purpose of effectively repairing the aforementioned lacerations. According to Lessersane, he encountered Tabitha's estranged husband while driving along Highway 87 South, prompting him to pull over and engage in a conversation with him. Lessersane provided this information to the authorities, who were investigating the situation. After engaging in a leisurely drive and engaging in conversation, Lessersane steered the vehicle towards the BP station located on Sand Hill Road. At this juncture, Goines, with an unexpected turn of events, produced a box cutter and proceeded to inflict harm upon Lessersane. The incident was swift, leaving Lessersane in a state of disbelief. In a significant turn of events, Goines found himself facing law enforcement. According to Tabitha's father, he holds the conviction that the incident is connected to her disappearance. Furthermore, his family firmly believes that Lessersane possesses additional information regarding Tabitha's vanishing that he has not disclosed to the authorities. The exact whereabouts and the specific details surrounding the disappearance of Tabitha are still a mystery to this day. Despite exhaustive investigations, no individuals have been identified as suspects or persons of interest in relation to her vanishing. The disappearance of Deanne Warner. Deanne Warner, a 52-year-old woman, went missing under mysterious circumstances in Franklin Township, Michigan, on April 25, 2021. The disappearance occurred right after a tense and emotionally charged argument with her husband, raising concerns about her well-being and safety. Deanne Warner, a native of Michigan, entered this world on June 30, 1968. Growing up amidst the tranquility of Lenawee County, a close-knit farming community that has been her family's home for 5 generations, she developed a deep connection to her roots. This remarkable individual holds a profound history that spans generations, shedding light on the close-knit fabric of her community. In the year 2006, Dee entered into matrimony with Dale John Warner, whom she encountered during her employment at a nearby firm engaged in agricultural sales. It is noteworthy that the union between Dee and Dale resulted from their professional association within the same industry. At the moment Dee went missing, she resided with her husband and daughter in a cozy residence situated on the peaceful Munger Road in Tecumseh, Michigan. It was within the vicinity of this serene abode that Dee diligently operated her own trucking and farming enterprise, utilizing the barns located at the back of her property. In the evening of April 24, 2021, Deanne Warner had made arrangements to engage in a heartfelt conversation with her husband, Dale Warner, pertaining to the difficult decision of separating or ending their marriage. The intention was to discuss the challenges in their relationship and possibly explore different paths going forward. At precisely 8:34 in the evening, a trusted family friend, who had kindly offered to look after their daughter over the weekend, arrived to pick her up. On that particular evening, Dee and her spouse engaged in a passionate disagreement centered around her business matters and a specific employee named Todd Nayrink, whom she had a previous altercation with earlier in the day. At precisely 10:52 in the evening, Dee found her phone buzzing with an incoming text message from a dear friend who expressed genuine concern. The message inquired about Dee's well-being and sought to ascertain how she was doing. By the conclusion of the evening, as reported by Dale Warner, the couple was able to resolve their differences and reconcile. A moment of serenity ensued when Dee, feeling the soothing effects of a massage, drifted off to sleep on the living room floor. Displaying tenderness and care, Warner gently lifted her and placed her on the couch before retiring for the night. According to reports on April 25, 2021, Dee was still in a slumber on the couch when her husband departed for work at 6:30 in the morning. In the morning, approximately at 9, Dee's grown-up daughter, along with her boyfriend and daughter, arrived at Deanne Warner's house in anticipation of their usual Sunday morning tradition of having breakfast together. However, to their surprise, Deanne Warner was conspicuously absent from her home. Deanne Warner, who left her home and has not been in contact since, remains missing. Concerned for her safety and well-being, her family took immediate action and formally reported her disappearance to the authorities at the Lenawee County Sheriff's Office. Deanne Warner mysteriously vanished, leaving behind her purse and cell phone. Interestingly, she left behind 2 vehicles, both of which were discovered neatly parked. One vehicle was found inside the garage of her residence, while the other was located at her office, only a mere 100 feet away. This puzzling disappearance raises numerous questions and instigates a deeper investigation into the circumstances surrounding her absence. During the night of April 24th, at around 11 in the evening, her mobile phone transitioned from being connected to Wi-Fi to relying on cellular service. However, by 2:30 in the morning, the phone completely lost power and became inoperable. Since that particular night, there has been no activity observed on her phone records, bank account, or social media platforms. Dale Warner held the belief that his wife, Deanne Warner, had departed that morning in the company of another man and had subsequently traveled outside the country. However, despite thorough scrutiny of surveillance footage, there was no visual evidence of Deanne Warner leaving the premises. Furthermore, it was discovered that her passport had not been utilized during this period. In their relentless pursuit of locating Deanne Warner, authorities painstakingly carried out numerous search operations, utilizing a wide range of resources and techniques. Helicopters scoured the skies, drones meticulously surveyed the area, radar systems scanned for any signs of her presence, and foot patrol teams tirelessly combed through the surroundings. As per the accounts provided by her family, Dee had made up her mind to initiate divorce proceedings and liquidate the business prior to her unexplained vanishing. It has been reported that she had been subjected to physical abuse by her spouse on numerous occasions, which compelled her to devise an escape plan from his clutches. On the date of August 9th, 2022, the Michigan State Police made an official statement, declaring their assumption of control over the ongoing investigation into the mysterious disappearance of Deanne Warner. In this complex case, they identified Dale John Warner as a person of interest, thus indicating a potential connection to the events surrounding his wife's vanishing. In September 2022, it was publicly disclosed that the offspring and close associates of Dee took the initiative to submit a formal request with the objective of legally confirming the occurrence of Dee's demise. There are suspicions of foul play surrounding the disappearance of Deanne Warner. To aid in the search for Deanne Warner, her family has established a reward of $50,000, which will be provided to anyone who can provide information leading to the location and discovery of Deanne Warner. The details surrounding Deanne Warner's vanishing are still shrouded in mystery, leaving her case classified as a missing persons investigation. Despite extensive efforts, the circumstances of her disappearance continue to elude authorities, rendering her case unsolved. The mystery of the Hopkinsville Goblin. It is believed that the Hopkinsville Goblin is an extraterrestrial species of unknown origin that was first encountered in the United States, in the small town of Hopkinsville, located in the state of Kentucky. The creature is not an individual entity, but rather a collection of similarly described humanoid figures that were encountered by the residents of the Sutton farmhouse, located nearby the town of Kelly in Christian County and the town of Hopkinsville. The creatures were described as being between 2 to 4 feet tall and possessing large pointed ears, hands that looked closer to that of claws, large eyes that glowed a yellow hue, and thin, spindly legs. Reported in detail on the 21st of August, in the year 1955, there was an impossible-to-explain incident that led to researchers theorizing that a previously unknown description of strange beings, later provided with the name of the Hopkinsville Goblins, had landed nearby a Kentucky farmhouse and made first contact with a family of 12, and demonstrated malevolent behavior that manifested into a vicious attack lasting for several hours. According to the police report surrounding the incident, the Hopkinsville Police Department reported that 5 adults and 7 children entered the police station with erratic behavior, having been described by the officers as appearing to be distraught and in a panic. The group of adults and children then reported to the police department that they had been in a gunfight, lasting for more than 4 hours, after a group of small alien creatures had come out of a nearby spaceship and began to attack them at their farmhouse. According to 2 witnesses of the event, 2 adults by the name of Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray Taylor, they claimed that there had been somewhere between 12 to 15 short humanoid figures that had repeatedly made an appearance at the doorway and peered in through the windows. In fear for their lives and unsure of what the creatures wanted, the invading creatures forced the family to open fire to prevent the unknown creatures from entering the home. As they would shoot the creatures, the witnesses claimed that the unknown monsters would make a loud pinging noise that sounded like the bullets were ricocheting off a metallic surface, causing the creatures to then fall to the floor momentarily, only to roll away and get back up after several seconds. Once revived, the creatures would resume trying to enter the home and make further attempts to enter through windows or doorways. The rest of the family provided a series of descriptions surrounding the creatures that they had believed were extraterrestrial beings, claiming that the small monsters stood at roughly 2 to 4 feet in height, had large pointed ears, claws for hands, and enlarged oval-shaped eyes that gave off a luminous yellow glow. Fearing that the shootout could have been evidence of neighboring families suffering from mass hysteria and attacking each other in the dark, the officers worked quickly to investigate the claims made by the Langford family. This led to the police department sending a total of 11 men, 4 city police, 3 deputy sheriffs, and 4 military police to the Sutton farmhouse to conduct an official investigation on the matter, leading to the officers discovering evidence of the gunfights, bullet holes, and clawed attempts to enter the home carved against the doors and windowsills. Police Chief Russell Greenwell reportedly found a glowing luminous stain nearby a fence on the property. Conflicting reports made by the military police claimed that police officer Richard Digby discovered the luminous stain. However, the compound was not gathered or tested for scientific study. A few hours following the investigation, the family would pack up their belongings and leave the farmhouse entirely. According to the family, their reason for their sudden departure was that the creatures had returned at around 3:30 in the morning and tried to re-enter their home once again. Events described as according to the Langford family's official police and subsequent news reports. The location of the incident took place at the Sutton farmhouse, owned by Mrs. Glennie Langford, located at the Gaither McGehee property found on Old Madisonville Road, Route 41, of Kelly, Kentucky, 8 miles north of Hopkinsville. The witnesses of the event totaled 11 people: Mrs. Glennie Langford, age 50, her youngest son Lonnie Langford, age 12, her eldest daughter Charlton Langford, age 10, her youngest daughter Mary Langford, age 7, her second-born son John Charlie J.C. Sutton, age 21, John Sutton's wife Aline Sutton, age 27, Aline Sutton's brother O.P. Baker, approximate age 30, her eldest son Elmer Lucky Sutton, age 25, and Elmer Sutton's wife Vera Sutton, age 29, Elmer Sutton's co-worker Billy Ray Taylor, age 21, and Billy Ray's wife June Taylor, age 18, totaling 8 legal adults and 3 children. It was a late Sunday evening, and the 3 families, the Langfords, Suttons, and Taylors, were passing the time by playing cards and telling funny stories after dinner. The visiting co-workers had asked if there was any Kentucky moonshine or bottles of beer available for them to enjoy, but Mrs. Glennie Langford admitted to the visitors that she was a very strict religious follower and would not allow any form of alcohol to enter her home or be consumed in her house. Desperate for something to drink, Billy Ray Taylor went out the back door of the house with a bucket and made a short trip to the outdoor pump to retrieve a few gallons of well water. It was at this time, originally reported to have been sometime around 7 in the evening, or 8 in the evening when accounting for modern scheduled daylight savings time that took effect after 1955, that Billy Ray Taylor noticed what he described as a streak of bright light that moved across the sky coming from the southwest toward his location. Many unidentified object reports erroneously mistake the time of day as pointing towards evidence of a hoax, believing that the sun would not set for another 36 minutes, and so the streak of light was caused by a reflection of sunlight off nearby clouds. However, when taking into account that the original sighting report time would have been around 8 in the evening by modern daylight savings time conventions, the sun had set over 24 minutes prior to the sighting of the bright streaks. As the unexplainable light flew closer, Billy Ray Taylor claimed that he could see what he described as a large disc-shaped object with a variety of colors emitted from its rear landing several fields over, beyond the tree line, disappearing about a quarter of a mile away. In the distance, however, the faint glow of a bright yellowish light could be seen. Surprised by the sudden appearance of the craft, Billy Ray Taylor immediately fled back into the house and told the others what he had witnessed and said that they should all go investigate the craft, together. Believing that Billy Ray had mistaken a falling star for an aircraft, the others dismissed his claims and told him to calm down. Another hour went by as the three families continued passing time together before they began to hear the family dogs breaking out into sporadic barkings and violent squeals. Worried for the canines, Elmer Lucky Sutton went outside to investigate the cause of their sudden barking, joined by Billy Ray Taylor, who had grown increasingly hysterical after his sighting of the unidentified flying object only moments before. It was at this moment that the two men claimed to have witnessed a strange creature slowly approaching the house, causing the dogs to flee and crawl underneath the house for protection. Panicked by the sighting, the two men ran back into the house and immediately began arming themselves. Armed, Elmer Sutton exited the farmhouse and stepped out onto the front porch with Billy Ray Taylor close behind. Illuminated by the light of the house, the two men could more accurately see the strange creature and described it as being approximately 3 to 4 feet in height, with an enlarged head and long, sharply pointed ears on either side. The eyes of the creature were described as being positioned more on the sides of the head and emitted a faint yellowish glow. The creature had long, thin arms that reached almost to the ground that were equipped with long, webbed fingers that ended in sharp, pointed claws on the tips of its fingers. Its legs were described as being abnormally short, as the creature appeared to have floated above the ground. The rest of its body gave off a faint reflective glow, as if it was encased in a protective layer of finely polished metal. Mrs. Glennie Langford would later provide the testimony that she had witnessed the strange creature lift its hands above its head as it approached the house. Believing the creature to be raising its hands in peace, she told the two men not to fire at the creature to allow it to approach closer. Whether or not the two men had heard Mrs. Langford, however, is unknown, as the two men opened fire on the creature, causing it to flip over backwards when struck by the bullets. The witnesses claimed that the sound of the bullets hitting the creature was similar to that of a bullet striking the side of a metal bucket. Immediately after falling to the ground, the metallic creature rose back to an upright position and ran off into the darkness, using an odd form of motion that the witnesses reported came from the hips and not from the motions of its legs. The two men and Mrs. Glennie Langford returned to the house and told the others what they had witnessed and began to arm themselves with whatever weapons they could find around the house, which included several rifles, shotguns, and pistols, alongside enough boxes of ammo to hold off a small army. As the three families were in the living room of the home, discussing what they were to do next, they noticed a metallic creature of similar design suddenly appear in the window, trying to peer into the house as if making an attempt to enter the home by force. John Sutton then fired at the living room window, causing the creature to fall backwards and hit the ground. Believing now that they were under attack, Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray went outside to check the perimeter of the house to make sure that the creature was gone. After Elmer had stepped off the porch and onto the front grass, with Billy Ray close behind, Aline Sutton noticed a long clawed hand reaching down from the porch's rooftop towards Billy Ray Taylor's head. She screamed for him to look up and to watch out for the creature's hand. At this point, Billy Ray Taylor was pulled back into the house by Aline Sutton, and Elmer Sutton turned around and began firing at the creature on the rooftop from the front yard, knocking the creature off the roof and disappearing into the nearby weeds. Billy Ray Sutton then began to realize that there was more than one creature and exited the house while pointing over at the property's adjacent tree line. Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray noticed another creature of similar design hiding in the nearby maple tree. The two men opened fire on the creature, which jumped down and slowly descended onto the yard before it moved away from the house and deeper into the tree line, with its hips swaying in a strange motion and its short legs floating above the ground. Billy Ray and Elmer Sutton chased the creature further into the tree line, firing after it until it was away from the property, a significant distance. When they returned to the house, they claimed to have seen another of the metallic creatures peeking around the side of the farmhouse, looking as if it was trying to find a side window to enter through. The two men fired at the creature until it was on the ground, which echoed the sound of metallic strikes, and began to approach the creature as they continued firing. Before the men could get too close, however, the creature levitated back up to an upright position and escaped. Spending another 20 minutes outside the home, looking around the property and the rooftop of the house, the two men noticed another metallic creature on the top of the house, and so began to fire multiple shots at the creature until it began descending 40 feet away from the rooftop and hovered over a fence located on the property. Chasing the creature, the two men went after the creature while firing, forcing the monster off the property as it fled away into the darkness. Failing to find any more of the creatures on or around the house, the two men re-entered the home and told the others what they had seen and that the single creature was more accurately a group of creatures. The children were told to stay under the beds, while the adults argued about what they were going to do and whether or not what was happening was some kind of elaborate prank being pulled on each other by other members of the house. More than 20 minutes passed without any sign of the creatures returning, at which point the family began to realize that their weapons were ineffective against the monsters and would not be able to repel them for long, and so decided that hiding in different areas around the house would be far more effective, in the hopes of waiting out the creatures until the morning arrived. While the occupants of the house waited, switching between hiding places and crouching by the windows and doors, the sounds of scratching and clawing would emanate from the rooftop. Before long, Mrs. Glennie Langford would scream to the men that she could see through the window that one of the metallic creatures was approaching the front door of the home and making an attempt to enter the house. Reacting quickly, Billy Ray Taylor opened the front door and fired several rounds through the screen door, completely destroying the lining of the screen door and causing the metallic creature to fly backwards onto the front yard. Mrs. Glennie Langford would later provide the testimony that the metallic creature that approached the front door had a design that differed greatly from the other reported metallic creatures, describing the creature as having the barrel-shaped body of a shiny silver 5-gallon kerosene can, supported by two skinny legs that touched the ground with a large head attached to the top of the body. Her description of the creature appears to imply that the creature was artificial in nature and possibly a metal automaton. As time passed, the surrounding metallic creatures made several more attempts to enter the house, appearing in windows and approaching the front door, but were warded off with gunfire at each attempt. The residents of the house estimated that at the height of the invasion attempts, there were somewhere between 12 to 15 of the metallic creatures at any one time, but reports themselves show that the attack could have been caused by two metallic creatures making repeat appearances. After several hours of the attack had passed, the three families began to worry that they would not be able to hold out for much longer, and began making attempts to conserve what remained of their ammunition, which was running thin. It was at around 11, a total of 3 hours after the invasion began, that the family made their first attempt to evacuate the home and contact the police. After planning out a thorough route that the 11 residents of the farmhouse could take together as a group to Elmer Sutton's and Billy Ray Taylor's car, the children and the wives quickly started to pack necessary belongings and prepared for their journey to the vehicles. When the attack slowed down, the adults formed a protective layer around the children, with the 3 armed men forming an outer offensive perimeter as they moved together as a group to separate vehicles. Once everyone was inside the vehicles, the families drove together to the nearest police station, 8 miles away in Hopkinsville. Many of the witnesses that had a direct and clear line of sight of the Hopkinsville goblins described the metallic creatures as demonstrating a peculiar form of flight capabilities. Rather than walking on the ground with a standard form of locomotion, they hovered only a few feet above the ground. When dropping from tree lines or rooftops, the creatures would slowly descend to the ground only to hover several feet above the ground, as if the creature was not capable of having a prolonged form of flight at a height greater than several feet. Due to their metallic nature, the artificial glowing eyes, the strange body shape, and the unexplainable form of levitation, it is believed that the Hopkinsville goblin is a robotic entity created and used by the nearby unidentified flying object for an unknown purpose. If it is to be believed that the creature is a robotic entity, then the hovering abilities are most likely caused by a mechanical form of flight that does not make significant noise, such as lighter-than-air processes, or ionic propulsion, or both. Reports show that officers discovered a luminous liquid material near the fence line of the property, which matches the claims made by Elmer Sutton and Billy Ray Taylor of firing at one of the creatures as it hovered over the fence. The luminous material provides evidence that the makeup of the creature is artificial in nature, and a form of coolant or oil could be made luminous for ease of repair, as a luminous compound would be easy to spot, and the coloring could be an easy indicator of which system might be leaking. The levitating form of locomotion of the creatures implies that the robots were most likely designed for zero-gravity environments, as the need for levitation of any kind would be far less efficient in gravity-heavy environments when compared to standard forms of locomotion. The creatures appeared to have a deeper knowledge of the psychological profile of human beings, consistently demonstrating behaviors that would require intensive study of the human mind and empathetic actions. Although it could have been possible that the Hopkinsville goblins were limited in its flight capabilities, reports showed that the creatures had the ability to levitate to heights that would allow them to get on top of rooftops and hide in trees, demonstrating that the creatures were more than capable of flying at much greater heights. The option then to fly at hovering heights could have been an empathetic move to appear more humanoid and less intimidating by remaining at much smaller heights when compared to the residents. When the creature raised its hands above its head, according to the testimony of Mrs. Glennie Langford, it demonstrated a knowledge of human body language, appearing to make an attempt at establishing a peaceful first contact. Such a behavior is atypical of any known creature and is evidence that the study of human body language took place. The creature's design is seemingly humanoid, which could have been a design choice that was made with empathetic connection in mind. It would be much easier for human beings to empathize and relate to a creature that is more similar in design to a humanoid figure rather than a more terrifying shape. And so the choice of humanoid designs over a robotic design that is far more efficient could be evidence of psychological understanding. Evidence as to their artificial nature is demonstrated in the complete lack of self-preservation on the creature's part and the performance of repeated actions, regardless of the changing conditions. Even after being shot and leaking luminous fluid, the creatures continued making repeated attempts at entering through the front door and peering through the window, of which would be anomalous behavior of any advanced intelligent life. The seemingly incompetent behavior points to an artificial intelligence or conditional programming.
The Blackbeard merfolk sighting. Edward Blackbeard Teach is remembered as one of the most fearsome men to have ever lived, becoming a legend during his own lifetime as one of the greatest pirates to have ever lived. Although his reign as a pirate only lasted a short 2 years, it was the terrifying cruelty of Blackbeard that cemented him as a legend. Many merchants and fishermen would often claim that when in battle against Blackbeard, they had believed him to be the devil himself, due to the fact that he would often put smoking fuses in his long black hair and beard and strapped weapons on his body to make himself look less human and more like a monster. It is for this reason that experts find it extremely peculiar that Blackbeard often wrote that his number one fear of the open sea was that of his mermaid sightings made in specific regions. Blackbeard often wrote that he believed the sighting of the creatures were an omen of bad luck, and that they had made attempts to drag him under the water and steal his gold. Blackbeard would often end his logbook reports with warnings to his crew members of the enchanting powers of the mermaids and never to revisit the areas of his sightings. The missing Prime Minister. On the 17th of December 1967, Prime Minister of Australia Harold Holt disappeared into the waters near Portsea, Victoria. Widely believed to be merely a swimming accident, various theories began to pile up. This is most likely because Holt's body was never recovered from the waters. Holt became Prime Minister in January 1966. Holt initially denied having security, deeming it unnecessary and making him seem impersonal to the public. This changed later, after a window of his office was sniped out and a later assassination attempt was made on the leader of the opposition. He finally agreed to one bodyguard but never took one on any vacations. Speaking of vacations, Holt was an avid outdoorsman. He had a fondness for spearfishing and would fish year-round. He also snorkeled, preferring the freedom versus the cumbersome weight of a tank. He is described as having incredible powers of endurance underwater. That being the case, however, Holt still had 2 near misses in the water. one which he blamed on a leaking snorkel, and one he blamed on chasing a fish while spearfishing. The morning of his disappearance began normally. Holt awoke early in his vacation house in Portsea, called his wife, and stopped at a general store. The items he purchased did not seem out of character: insect repellent, peanuts, and some newspapers. Holt spent the morning with friends, with a notable stop in Port Phillip Bay to catch a glimpse of a solo circumnavigator coming through. On the way home, in typical Holt fashion, he suggested they all stop for a swim at Cheviot Beach. His reasonings were the hot day and wanting to work up an appetite for the barbecue lunch they had planned to enjoy. Holt was familiar with the area, having spent lots of time swimming and fishing in the area. He had even once retrieved a porthole from a shipwreck in the area. Holt was the only one to venture deep into the water. Others deemed it unsafe due to a visible swell and undertow. Holt swam deeper out into the ocean, despite the calls from his friends, and without a wave or call for help, Holt simply slipped beneath the water. The search for Holt's body went on until January 5, 1968. A formal investigation deemed it an accidental drowning, stating Holt took a risk that day and paid the price for it. They found no evidence to prove otherwise. They went on further to explain that if sea creatures had gotten a hold of his body, he would have been reduced to bones within days. This would explain the lack of body being found. It all sounds so cut and dry, but soon enough, theories began to surface. Some theories claim he ended his life, fearing his political career was ending. The police report specifically ruled out this theory. However, as Holt carried on his ordinary routines, his wife went on to say that she believed him too selfish to commit suicide. Other more crazy ideas involve a Chinese submarine rescuing their lifelong spy and being killed by a Vietnamese nerve agent, all of which have been marked as nonsense from Holt's family. In Australia, Holt's death is often the subject of dark humour. It has impacted their slang. Instead of bolting, one would do a Harold Holt. His death has even inspired a storyline on an Australian soap opera. Whatever locals believe, it is obvious Holt's disappearance has impacted the lives of those he served. Pedro Oliva Ramirez, the man who travelled to a parallel universe. Our last mysterious individual is Pedro Oliva Ramirez from Seville, Spain. He was driving home one night when he experienced something unlike anything he'd experienced before. The start of his drive was normal, but it was once he laid eyes on the open land that was about 100 meters away where he could see 5 or 6 industries. When he looked over to the other side, he saw the same phenomenon, only there were residential buildings. He felt as if the landscape was a little unusual and then started to feel a strong sensation of heat invading his vehicle. He also described seeing a great soccer goal many meters ahead from the car and he had to pass through. He heard voices, one of which confirmed that he had been transferred to another country in a different hemisphere. He continued driving along the road for about an hour until he decided to stop. He got out of his car and walked along the edge of the road for many hours, looking at the lights of other vehicles and the grass. He got back in his car and continued driving until he found a triple sign with directions. He took a detour towards Seville and got lost. He tried to retrace his steps but never found the sign again and could not relocate the large 6-lane highway he had previously been travelling on. When looking back on the maps, he wasn't able to find such a highway to begin with. After further investigation, Ramirez concluded that he must have passed over into another dimension while driving home that day. Of course, no one is able to confirm his experience to be true, so we'll have to go off his word for now. Maybe one day in the future we will be better equipped to understand what happened, and if time travel was possible when Ramirez had this unusual experience. After taking a look at the lives of these 3 interesting and mysterious individuals, do you believe that time travel is real? With no real evidence to back each story, it's challenging to believe it entirely. With more people coming forward with stories related to teleportation and time travel, maybe we'll experience it for ourselves at some point. Until then, we can only choose to believe it's a real possibility if we want to. The disappearance of Sharon Buis. On May 23, 2014, Sharon Gay Buis disappeared from the Mount Roberts Trail in Alaska. She was last seen at 9:30 a.m. that morning at the Alaska Marine Line store in downtown Juneau. The 48-year-old was hiking solo and had not notified any friends or family about her plans. She was supposed to meet with a friend the next day at 8:45 a.m. to go hiking together, but failed to show. After some time, she was reported missing, but troopers have not found any clues of her whereabouts to this day. Sharon Buis was a physical therapist working for Juneau Physical Therapy and had lived in Juneau for a decade by the time of her disappearance. She also ran a side business where she sold orthopedic office chairs. She was shipping out 2 chairs at Alaska Marine Lines the day that she went missing. Buis was an experienced hiker and had recently returned from Greenland, where she went ice camping. She had even biked from Alaska to Canada at one point and enjoyed running, kayaking, and playing hockey. Buis was always active, so her longtime hiking partner was very confused when she did not show up that morning. Buis owned an emergency GPS, but left it at home that day along with her overnight backpack. Police assumed her cell phone was with her, but it was most likely turned off as the phone company could not ping its location. Ann Johnson called the police and filed a missing person report after Buis failed to show up for their Hawthorne Peaks hike. Feeling uneasy about the situation, Johnson drove around that evening to various trailheads looking for Buis's car. She eventually found it parked at Mount Roberts Trailhead at 9:30 p.m. on May 24, 2014. The search began at 1 a.m. on May 25th and covered the entire Mount Juneau trail system and backcountry over 4 days. The U.S. Coast Guard, Alaska State Troopers, Southeast Alaska Dogs, and the Alpine Club all joined the search and rescue alongside her family and friends. The Coast Guard even brought in a helicopter to use FLIR thermal imaging and night vision to find her, but were unsuccessful. The search team utilized aerial support wherever the ground was too dangerous for searchers to explore, such as ravines or ridgelines. A search dog picked up her scent near the Mount Roberts Trailhead parking lot after a few days. But that was it. The search lasted only 4 days before the state troopers called it off, much to the dismay of Buis's loved ones. The searchers had covered so much ground and double-checked everywhere that they were confident she was not there. Over the next few months, occasional leads would turn up and give them hope, such as a hiker who reported a bear and a decaying odor, but nothing ever panned out. Some groups conducted additional search attempts around the trail and the abandoned mine shafts nearby, but never found any evidence suggesting Buis's presence. They have combed through that trailhead so often that it is surprising they have not been able to find anything. The police and troopers explained that Buis might have gotten lost or injured in an area inaccessible to ground searchers. Another theory is that she was attacked by an animal, although they found no evidence of that. Another idea was that she was a victim of foul play. Her car was at the trailhead, but did she even make it up onto the trail? The police never managed to find information about Sharon Buis's disappearance, so it remains an open case 7 years later. Gabriel Nagy. Sometimes people go missing and are never seen or heard from again, leaving their families to conclude, after years of waiting, that they must have met some unfortunate end. This appeared to be the case with Gabriel Nagy, who disappeared from Sydney, Australia one afternoon in 1987. A devoted husband and father to 2 children, Nagy was an incredibly hard worker who supported his family by working successful construction jobs while attending accounting classes at night. On that fateful day, Nagy had spent the morning running errands in town and called his wife Pamela to let her know that he was on his way home for lunch. Pamela got his lunch ready, but when he did not return after several hours, she became increasingly worried, and that worry turned into outright panic when Nagy's car was discovered on the side of the road. The car was burned, and Gabriel was nowhere to be found. His distraught family was left to wonder what had happened and where their father and husband went. 2 weeks after his car was found, Nagy withdrew money from a bank in Newcastle, almost 100 miles from Sydney, confirming that he was out there somewhere and still alive. However, no other clues or leads turned up for over 2 decades, and his family had long ago lost hope that they would ever see him again. Finally, during preparations to declare Nagy officially dead after being missing for so long, a police officer combing public records one final time noticed that a man of the same name, who also went by Ron Saunders, had appeared in medical records from a recent surgery. The officer travelled to the location of the surgery in a town called Mackay, almost 1,000 miles from Sydney, and tracked down Nagy at last. It turned out that he had developed dissociative fugue as a result of the crash, resulting in retrograde amnesia that caused him to forget about his life prior to the accident. With no idea who he was, he spent the intervening years mostly homeless, wandering from city to city. He called himself Ron Saunders because he had seen a sign for Saunders Beach during his wanderings and, not knowing his real name, thought that it sounded nice. After his discovery, as he read letters and saw pictures from before his accident, his memory slowly began to return in hazy pieces, and he was reunited with his family. Although he and his wife and children still live separately, his family is all supportive of Nagy as he navigates this new life that he was unaware that he even had, and begins to rebuild the relationships with those who had believed him dead for 20 years. The Cassie Nicole boat. On April 10, 1990, a snapper boat set off on a fishing expedition in the Atlantic Ocean. For the majority of the previous month, the ship had been undergoing maintenance, and on the second day of the expedition, at allegedly 4:30 a.m., one of the crew members, Nathan, noticed that there was something wrong with the ship. It was stagnant and churning forward in a worryingly unstable manner. Brothers Nathan and the captain Billy Joe Neesmith discovered a store of water in the hold and the pumps were no longer running. The power went out and any attempts to get help through the radio were futile. Nathan woke up the other two crew members, Keith Wilkes and Franklin Brantley, who attempted to gather and pour the water overboard using buckets, but this failed as the boat continued to sink deeper into the waves. Captain Neesmith ordered for the ship to be abandoned since they would not be able to salvage it. Fortunately, they had a raft on board, which they all decided to board, but the raft was run down and had not been adequately cared for during the ship's maintenance, and a fungus had gotten into the wood, rotting it from within. The raft was small, and the four men struggled to fit onto it. They floated upon the waves until the hull of their sunken boat drifted towards them. Nathan decided to attempt riding on the hatch drifting nearby, despite the pleas from his fellow crew members to remain on the raft. They had no way of knowing what would happen if touching the shipwreck was safe, not to mention they feared the possibility of being split up on the vast, dark ocean. Nathan swam until he reached the submerged hull, but the dark dusk concealed his vision of the raft. By the morning of April 12th, he saw a freighter in the distance which circled around his crewmates for several hours, but the freighter never came for him. Fate seemed grim for Nathan, but then the ship's bait box broke off and he saved himself by turning it into a raft just before the whole boat sunk into the Atlantic. He was rescued on April 15, 1990, terribly sunburnt and on the verge of death from dehydration. He hoped to be reunited with his crewmates, but this chance never arrived because, despite a search by the US Coast Guard, his three crewmates were missing. Nathan believes that the freighter which saved them dropped them off in a different nation. Oneida, the sister of Nathan and Captain Billy Joe Neesmith, received a strange call from someone speaking Spanish, but the only thing she understood was her name and phone number before the caller hung up. The owner of the snapper boat, Mr. Tyson, received a similar call from someone speaking broken English. Oneida and Tyson received 3 more calls between them until 1991, when the caller said, "I am bringing them home," in comprehensive English. Oneida stated in her testimony that the caller must have been a Spanish-speaking native from another country who found or befriended the 3 crew members. The 3 men, Billy Joe Neesmith, Keith Wilkes and Franklin Brantley, are still lost at sea and have officially been declared deceased. Despite this, the strange calls suggest they were alive and on their way home. Since then, there has been no contact at all with either Mr. Tyson or Oneida. Despite the fact 30 years have now passed, their families still pray for their safe return. The unsolved disappearance of Thomas Nuzzi. Thomas Nuzzi's family has been searching for him for the last decade after he mysteriously vanished on June 18, 2001. He was last seen by friends 3 days prior and was finally reported missing after failing to show up to work in Bethel, Alaska on the 19th. The last image of him was taken on the 18th at a gasoline station near the Super 8 Hotel on Minnesota Drive in Anchorage, where he was staying. Authorities found a receipt that showed Nuzzi had purchased chips, soda, 2 lighters, and a pack of cigarettes at the gas station at 9:47 p.m. He was never seen or heard from after this. Police believe Nuzzi was on foot when he disappeared, since his Jeep Cherokee was found 12 miles outside of the city at the Alpenglow ski area in Chugach State Park, and his bicycle was at his unlocked storage unit. Apparently, on June 15th, a woman and another man attempted to break into Nuzzi's car at the hotel, as reported by a security guard. The woman was also captured on the surveillance camera standing next to Nuzzi at the gas station. On his last known day, the same couple was once again spotted breaking into the Jeep. This time, the man was successful and drove off with the car. The following day, the day Nuzzi was reported as missing, a housekeeper of the hotel saw a man on Nuzzi's hotel room floor. When she came back later in the afternoon, the same man was sitting on the bed. He was not Nuzzi, and she made him leave the room. Police consider the couple as persons of interest to the case, but have not been identified or seen since. The woman is small, about 5 foot 2 inches and 105 pounds, Caucasian with medium-long dark hair, and possibly in her 20s. The man is dark-skinned, tall, thin, and has decaying teeth. They are suspected of having used Nuzzi's phone, since all the recent calls on his phone were traced to unknown numbers. Many of the numbers are connected to motels, pages, and a halfway house. Nuzzi's nephew called back every single call, missed, dialed, or received, but none of the people who answered him had ever heard of his uncle before. Despite an extensive search for clues by authorities, they were unable to turn up any evidence or leads to Nuzzi's disappearance. He lived a quiet and reclusive life, working as a registered nurse and often traveling around the state for his employment. Because of this, he did not even have a permanent address and opted to live out of hotels. He has never been seen since that day, and his case remains unsolved. The Shanti Devi Story. The story of Shanti Devi is among the most amazing documentation of reincarnation, attracting the attention of everyone, including Mahatma Gandhi. Born in India's New Delhi on the 11th of December 1926, Shanti did not speak much in her first years, unlike many young children. When she reached 4 years, however, she started speaking about her memories of another life that she lived. She said that her home was not in Delhi, but instead 93 miles away in Mathura, where she lived with her husband, and she insisted that she had to go back to her son and husband. Her parents discouraged her from speaking of her previous life, telling her to put it behind her and be concerned about the present, which annoyed her and made her run away from home to Mathura. She was found and taken back to her parents. She started speaking of her previous life during school in detail and was even able to recall the names of her husband, children, and what happened when she lost her life. She died 9 days after giving birth. This information enabled the headmaster to locate a man named Kedar Nath, who had lost his wife Ludji 9 years ago, 10 days after childbirth. Kedar visited Shanti and her parents using a false name, and she soon identified him as her previous life husband. Mahatma Gandhi was informed of the events and possible reincarnation, and he set up a team to investigate the story. Shanti and the team went to Mathura, where she recognized her home, the furniture layout, and even her family members. She remembered some secrets of family members that someone would only know in confidence. Shanti was also able to tell her husband that he did not keep the promises that he had made to her. She also started speaking in her local dialect. The team concluded irrefutably that Shanti Devi was a reincarnation of Lugdi Devi. Several other researchers did their independent investigations and came to the same conclusion. Zach Bagans and the Conjuring House. Ghost hunter, TV presenter, and all-round creep-loving guy Zach Bagans has been surrounded by ghouls and ghosts for most of his professional life. The host of the show Ghost Adventures, Baggins also owns his own haunted museum in Nevada. Despite becoming accustomed to the spooks of the underworld, Baggins reportedly isn't immune to the effects that his area of interest has on people. Dubbed the modern Ed and Lorraine Warren, Baggins paid a visit to the legendary Harrisville farmhouse in Rhode Island, which is the real-life setting for the Conjuring film franchise. The original owners of the home, depicted in the films, spoke of how the Warrens knew that they had their hands full when they entered the farmhouse to investigate alleged incidents of possession and poltergeist activity. When Baggins entered the farmhouse to explore it himself, things began to go wrong. Baggins allegedly began to complain of chest pains and dizziness, as well as difficulty breathing. Baggins declared himself unwell and described how he just didn't want to be around anybody. He insisted that he didn't feel possessed and how he would know what that felt like. He described his feeling as if something was drawing life out of him into some sort of entity or atmosphere. Scarily, like many who had been to the farmhouse before, Baggins too knew there was a presence there. Baggins, the Warrens, and others have all felt a strange and eerie presence in the Harrisville farmhouse, and it could well be one of the most haunted places in America. The disappearance of Bruno Manza. On May 25, 2000, Swiss environmentalist Bruno Manza disappeared in the Borneo forests and has never been seen since. He was declared legally deceased 5 years later, as there was no sign or evidence of him found. He was 45 at the time and had spent the past 10 years fighting the Malaysian government and logging companies on behalf of the Penan, the indigenous jungle nomads of Borneo. Manza wanted to live a life without consumerism, capitalism, and technological advancements. As a young adult, he refused the Swiss military draft and served a few months in jail. He then moved to the Alps to work as a cow and sheep herder and learned how to make his own tools and food. He became enchanted with this type of simple living. Switzerland was not enough for him, so at 30 years old, he travelled to Borneo. He soon learned about the Penan nomadic tribes and decided to try and find them and live with them. After searching the dense Sarawak jungle in Malaysia, he finally came in contact with them in May 1984. After some time, the Penan accepted his presence and he began to learn their language and culture. He grew out his hair into their traditional mullet, wore a loincloth, walked barefoot, and even hunted with a blow dart. The Penan nicknamed him Laki Penan, which means Penan Man. They respected him and considered him one of their own. The politics in Borneo grew more complicated and aggressive, as the government backed the logging companies who were destroying the forests and desecrating sacred lands. The deforestation contaminated their drinking water, significantly reduced the vegetation and game, and limited the tribe in their movements. Mansa began to work alongside the Penan in their attempts to thwart the loggers. Over the next decade, he would go back almost every year to visit the tribe, usually by illegally crossing the border out of Indonesia to get to them, and would assist them in their battle with the loggers. He travelled the world and held lectures, protests, and strikes to garner attention to the Penan's plight. He set up a fund to give aid to the indigenous people in the forest, and the cause eventually gained notoriety around the world. Politicians and leaders around the world condemned the deforestation, which angered the Malaysian government. They denied him entry and put a bounty on his head when he swam across the border at night. He was enemy number one of the state and escaped capture numerous times by using a fake passport and changing his appearance, running away while an officer was distracted, and using the rivers and forest undergrowth to hide. In February of 2000, Mansa began his last trek to the Sarawak forest. He first travelled with the secretary of his fund, BMF, and a film crew. After a while, they left, and he continued with a different friend for a few weeks until they arrived at the Sarawak-Kalimantan border. Mansa, aided by a local guide, crossed the border on the 22nd of May. The last known sighting of him was on May 25th, when a local Penan and his son journeyed with him to the mountain Bukit Batu Lawi. Mansa intended to ascend the mountain alone. Searches and expeditions were conducted by Penang teams and members of the BMF, but to no avail. There were conspiracies that the Malaysian government ended his life, but those close to him believe he either fell down the mountain or took his own life. After his disappearance, he was awarded the International Society for Human Rights Prize and had a new species of goblin spider named after him. 10 years after his disappearance, a memorial service was held in Basel, Switzerland, to which 500 people attended. There have been films and books made about his story. The Black Mountain. Known as Kalkajaka by the indigenous peoples living there, Black Mountain has its fair share of haunted stories and legends. This mountain is situated along the Trefethen Range in northern Queensland. It is made up of many giant granite boulders. Kalkajaka translates to spear and was named for the last battleground between the inland and coastal clans as they fought for hunting grounds. It is a massive graveyard for their fallen warriors, and is believed to be a place where devils and spirits wander about. The indigenous peoples in this area are taught to respect the mountain and actively avoid going there. They believe that you will get very sick if you visit it and that the spirits living there will torment you. The legends say that there are dark forces at work within the mountain, so they do not like when people visit it. Once settlers started arriving to colonize the lands in the 1800s, they also added onto these legends with their own experiences. Dozens of men have attempted to visit the mountain, but none ever made it back. Men, their horses, and entire herds of cattle have gone missing from this mountain. Infamous criminals ran into the mountain and caves to escape law enforcement and were never found, despite intensive searches of the surrounding areas. Even the trackers that were sent in to find missing people also disappeared. There was only one case of a police officer who returned, but he was so distraught and unhinged that he was unable to ever give a report on it. It is nicknamed the Bermuda Triangle of northern Queensland, as no one can fully explain what happens there. People who live nearby report eerie sounds that occur, especially during the night. When the wind blows through the rocks, it sounds like people or spirits screaming. When it rains and the rocks break down and fall, it sounds as if an explosion has just gone off. Some theories say that it is a man-made pyramid as it is located on one of the meridian points on our planet. In reality, it is just hard granite that was formed underneath the Earth's surface and was gradually exposed as the surface above it eroded. Weather shaped the rock into boulders and created deep fractures and cliffs. The dark color of the rock is also due to the blue-green algae that grows on it. Despite knowing how the rocks were formed, there is still no concrete explanation for all the missing persons. It is an extremely dangerous hike to get to the top of the mountain. It requires you to jump from rock to rock, where any misstep can cause you to fall. The indigenous people dislike it when adventurers come to hike the mountain, as they don't show any respect for it. If you want to visit it, you should take a guided tour led by the indigenous clans so that they can teach you about the cultural significance of it. Most people don't believe in the spirits that haunt the mountain, but they are still wary of the mountain. Some superstitions cannot be ignored. There is just something about Black Mountain that unnerves people. The disappearance of Mel Wiley. Police Chief Mel Wiley was last seen on July 27, 1985, on a date with his girlfriend in Hinckley Township, a suburb of Cleveland. His car was found on July 30th at Lakefront State Park on Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. Police performed a thorough search of the area and found no sign of Wiley. After searching his car, which was still locked, they found his wallet with $15 in cash, his police ID and badge, some sunscreen, a pack of cigarettes, and a beach towel. After performing an investigation among Wiley's friends, family, and co-workers, authorities ruled out the possibility of foul play. Wiley left work early a lot and seemed moody in the weeks before his disappearance. His friends believed that he had grown tired of his job but did not think anything of it. He had always wanted to retire at 50, so he could write full-time, but he ended up disappearing 3 years before retirement. In his spare time, Wiley wrote poetry and was a thriller mystery novelist. Before his disappearance, he was writing a novel about a homicide in Pennsylvania that he often spoke of to anyone that would listen. When police entered Wiley's home, it was spotless, and he had also left several days of food and water out for his 2 cats. After an extensive search through his belongings, his thriller manuscript was nowhere to be found. Other missing things were stamps, envelopes, his music collection, typewriter paper, and an address book. Most of his long-sleeve shirts were missing, which he frequently wore to cover the burns on his arms that he had suffered while serving in the military. The only thing left in his fridge was a jar of mayonnaise. The police later found out that his desk at the police station was empty as well, except for a key to his apartment. At this point, it was as if Wiley had merely vanished into thin air, but after picking up his dry cleaning, police found the first of many strange clues. Located in the pocket of his police uniform were bus schedules from Cleveland to San Francisco. Wiley had written a letter to a female friend before his disappearance. He had expressed that he wanted to disappear and was tired of his life in Hinckley. The letter stated that he would be 2,500 miles away when his friend would receive his letter, roughly the distance between Cleveland and San Francisco. Police were able to decipher the letter by looking at the ribbon on his office typewriter. Investigators were never able to track down the original letter, and it appears that the friend never received it. As a police chief, Mel had access to all he would need to form a new identity directly at his fingertips. With access to a database of fingerprints and social security information, it is entirely possible that Mel leveraged his years in law enforcement to facilitate his disappearance. With his military background and several years in law enforcement, he would also know how to stay off the radar. Mel was the only suspect in his own case. He was declared legally deceased in 1993 per Ohio law, once he had been missing for 5 years. Mel could very well be enjoying his remaining years writing poetry and novels on the West Coast today. Having a passion for writing mysteries, Wiley's most tremendous story appears to have been the one of his own disappearance. Craig Williamson, who disappeared, was discovered with memory loss. Craig Williamson, a Wisconsin guy that went missing while out on a work trip in Colorado 2 years ago, is alive today and well in Key West, Florida. According to officials, Williamson is said to be a driver in Florida. After being violently attacked on August 30th, 1993 at a pub or convenience shop in Colorado, he recently informed police that he lost his memory. Williamson's story, however, corresponds to a view advanced by his widow, Christine Reinhardt, who garnered global attention to her husband's abduction. Her statewide lookup for Williamson does include clip-on national TV programs and numerous media articles in multiple states. "I have no authority to speak on the subject, I'm stunned," Ms. Reinhardt, who relocated from Wisconsin to Cody, Wyoming, roughly a year ago just after the couple's fishery closed, stated. She explained, "We're trying hard to keep it a family matter till we can address some concerns, because presently we're both very vulnerable. Craig's mental reaction is quite fragile." She furthermore defined her husband as experiencing an exceptionally incapacitated recollection and even being very suspicious or frightened, with whom she had spoken on the mobile device at least 2 or 3 times over the last week. El Paso County Sheriff's detectives are delighted to bring the case to an end after years and years of effort by state and federal investigators and a financial cost of approximately $12,000 since August 31st, 1993. Williamson must have traveled to Colorado in late August in an old-fashioned bus intending to purchase fish from the fisheries around Alamosa. However, he vanished before he could even secure his cargo. The majority of Williamson's things were discovered in the lodge bedroom and at the bus station nearby. They investigated the case as a suspected assassination despite the lack of traces of resistance. Williamson's subsequent communications with Ms. Reinhardt, as well as his old girlfriend in Wisconsin, led detectives to the Florida harbor in which he had resided for the past 9 months. Authorities are not sure what happened to Williamson before he vanished. Williamson, on the other hand, reportedly told authorities how he was brutally injured and awoke in a hospital wearing a bracelet with the moniker Ron on it. He then spent 18 months in Key West, riding public transport aimlessly. Williamson's recall was questioned by the sheriff's captain, Lou Smith, who assisted with the inquiry. He said that shavings from Williamson's moustache were recovered in the discarded hire truck, which was clipped using blades from lab personnel. Smith speculated he was presumably altering his look. Williamson was carrying $2,500 in cash before he vanished, and he might have been fleeing an onerous responsibility from his new company. The duo had put all they possessed into the fish farm, plus an additional $400,000. Smith claims that the answer can only be revealed if Williamson, who did not answer a journalist's call, reveals it. If only Williamson requests it, police will look into the charges of harassment.
According to researchers, Homo sapiens, commonly known as modern humans, are believed to have emerged approximately 200,000 years ago. However, it is important to note that only a fraction of that time, specifically 195,000 years, has been documented and recorded. This means that an astounding 97% of our history remains largely unknown and undocumented. Throughout this extensive period, numerous significant events have taken place, and countless civilizations have risen and fallen. Unfortunately, due to the lack of tangible evidence left behind, we are unable to fully comprehend the existence and influence of these civilizations on our ancestors. It is a profound realization that the vast majority of our past, spanning thousands of years, remains shrouded in mystery. With each passing century, countless civilizations and their achievements have faded into obscurity, leaving us with only fragments of their legacy. The untold stories and untapped knowledge of these civilizations have become lost chapters in the epic tale of human history. According to certain researchers, it has been suggested that civilizations from the past have left behind intriguing symbols, drawings, and markings, which can serve as valuable clues in unraveling their activities and way of life. However, in the realm of archaeology, some anomalous findings have emerged, challenging our established historical understanding. One such intriguing discovery is an enigmatic drawing that was unearthed within a cave situated in Japan. Delving into the depths of this topic, it becomes increasingly evident that these ancient civilizations possessed a language of symbols and depictions that carried profound meaning. These visual remnants provide a window into their world, allowing us to gain insights into their rituals, beliefs, communication systems, and perhaps even their artistic expressions. The British Exploring Society was among the pioneers in sharing this intriguing discovery on their social media accounts, prompting their followers to weigh in with their interpretations. Since then, numerous other social media platforms have also shared this discovery, leading many to observe the striking resemblance between the drawing and an advanced aircraft. Similar drawings have been unearthed in various corners of the globe, including ancient Egypt. The fact that different civilizations have depicted the same phenomenon has raised eyebrows and sparked curiosity. However, one of the challenges associated with these discoveries is their isolated nature, often leaving researchers with little contextual information to determine the time period in which the drawing was created or the exact intent of the artist. Despite this, there are groups of individuals who believe that these drawings actually portray enigmatic flying aircrafts. Proponents of this theory argue that such depictions do not align with anything else known from those time periods, as aircraft and aerial vehicles were not believed to exist during those eras. Interestingly, these peculiar objects appear in the detailed accounts of various ancient cultures, including the Egyptians, Indians, and Mayans. The ancient Indians referred to these objects as vimanas, and it is noteworthy that numerous ancient paintings and carvings depict these enigmatic entities. Japan has a long history of intriguing and enigmatic tales, and one such captivating story revolves around the Utsurobune phenomenon. This incident, which occurred in 1803, centers around an extraordinary event where an alluring young woman appeared on the shores of Japan aboard a peculiar, technologically advanced vessel. Inquisitive local fishermen were both fascinated and perplexed by her presence, as she seemed unable to communicate in the native Japanese language. Uncertain of how to handle this extraordinary situation, The fishermen eventually decided to release her back into the sea, allowing her to depart in her peculiar craft. Local legends surrounding this mysterious occurrence often allude to the woman being a visitor from a distant and unfamiliar land, as her appearance and demeanor were noticeably distinct from the local inhabitants. Some intriguing accounts even mention a captivating element. The woman was said to be clutching a mysterious box in her hands when she arrived ashore. The story of the Utsurobune serves as a testament to Japan's profound and long-standing fascination with extraordinary occurrences and their willingness to embrace the enigmatic and unknown. Though limited historical information exists, the legend continues to captivate the imagination, allowing for various interpretations and speculations about the origin and purpose of the woman's unusual vessel, as well as her own identity and intentions. This mesmerizing tale has become a notable part of Japan's folklore, embodying the enduring allure of the unknown and the ever-present desire to unravel its secrets. The legend surrounding Utsurobune is supported by 3 distinct historical references, all originating from the early 1800s. While these references provide different accounts of the incident, they share certain similarities. The story also mentions a series of investigations that were conducted, each yielding somewhat contrasting findings. Notably, one of the more recent investigations was carried out by Dr. Kazuo Tanaka from Gifu University of Tokyo. According to his research, the legends surrounding Utsurobune lack specific details regarding the boat's movement, but do highlight the peculiar fact that it remained motionless on the water. These findings shed light on the complexity and enigmatic nature of the legend, inviting further exploration and analysis. During their exploration of an ancient cave system in India, Dr. Bhagat and his team made yet another peculiar discovery. According to their findings, they stumbled upon an intriguing cave painting that bore a striking resemblance to an extraterrestrial being. Astonishingly, they estimated that this painting could potentially be over 10,000 years old. Dr. Bhagat expressed his keen interest in seeking the opinions of both NASA and the Indian Space Research Organization in regard to this astonishing find. This discovery has sparked the speculation among certain theorists that advanced ancient civilizations thrived thousands of years ago, leaving behind compelling evidence of their presence. For instance, some theorists highlight the intriguing stone figure found amidst a cluster of ancient Mayan ruins in Guatemala. This stone figure intriguingly depicts a remarkably accurate representation of a modern-day astronaut, skillfully crafted in stone. Naturally, this enigmatic stone figure has been at the center of numerous debates surrounding ancient civilizations. Some claim that the representation of these gods as advanced beings from distant planets is a testament to their superior knowledge and technology. It is believed that these ancient civilizations may have possessed a profound understanding of astronomy, space travel, and the existence of beings from other worlds. This remarkable discovery, along with the cave painting found in India, adds an intriguing layer to humanity's understanding of its ancient past. The search for answers and the interpretation of these mysterious relics continue to captivate the minds of both scientists and enthusiasts alike. The cave paintings, which can be found in close proximity to central India, offer an intriguing sight as they depict a variety of both human and animal figures. Astonishingly, these ancient artworks exhibit depictions of kangaroos, giraffes, and fish-like creatures, species that are not native to India. However, one particular painting caught the attention of the research team due to its uniqueness. Dr. Bhagat, a member of the team, provided an interesting perspective on this discovery, suggesting that it implies a possibility that humans in prehistoric times might have encountered or imagined beings from other planets. This notion, which continues to pique the curiosity of both people and researchers, is further reinforced by the presence of figures wearing spacesuits in some of the depicted scenes. While similar cave paintings have been discovered in the past, none have exhibited such intricate and detailed renderings until now. Remarkably, this specific region is also home to portrayals of flying saucers, equipment, and depictions of abduction, prompting amateur researchers to question why mainstream scientists have not pursued further investigation. They argue that the omission of these astonishing discoveries from our history books hinders our understanding of the past and maintains that such findings could provide invaluable insights. On the contrary, mainstream researchers have dismissed these depictions as mere drawings, lacking any historical significance. So, what do you make of these interesting discoveries? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. The mysterious disappearance of Christine Parker. Christine Parker, a 55-year-old woman, went missing on August 6, 2023, in Battle Mountain, Nevada. She was last seen after she departed from her residence in Idaho, driving her pickup truck accompanied by her 2 loyal Border Collie dogs. Christine Passy Parker, hailing from Montpelier, Idaho, is a remarkable individual who embraces multiple roles in her life. As a devoted wife, loving mother, and doting grandmother, she embodies the essence of familial warmth and love. However, her journey has not been without challenges. On the evening of August 6, 2023, Christine Parker's whereabouts were last observed in the vicinity of Battle Mountain, Nevada, at approximately 4:30 in the afternoon. Prior to her departure, she had left her residence in Idaho, embarking on her journey accompanied by her 2 loyal Border Collie dogs. It is noteworthy that these dogs are distinguished by their distinctive half-white and half-black facial markings. On the 7th of August in the year 2023, her family took the step of reporting her missing to the Montpelier Police Department after they were unable to establish contact with her. In a remote area of the Eugene Mountains near Imlay, Nevada, a hunter stumbled upon Parker's vehicle on August 15, 2023. The abandoned vehicle, precisely described as a 2011 charcoal grey Toyota Tacoma pickup truck with an Idaho license plate number, raised intrigue and questions regarding its presence in Pershing County. In an exhaustive effort to locate Christine, authorities meticulously scoured the surrounding vicinity by collaborating with search and rescue teams, mounted police units, and the Civil Air Patrol. Despite this extensive search operation, no trace or indications of Christine's whereabouts were discovered. The combined efforts of these experienced search teams, law enforcement personnel, and aviation experts yielded no definitive answer for what happened. Christine Parker is classified as being at risk due to a medical condition resulting from a traumatic brain injury she experienced several years ago. This condition necessitates her daily intake of medication. As a consequence of her medical condition, Christine may exhibit symptoms such as paranoia, emotional withdrawal, or an excessively friendly demeanor. The investigation conducted by the police did not uncover any evidence suggesting foul play in relation to Christine Parker's disappearance. The circumstances surrounding her vanishing are still shrouded in mystery, leaving many unanswered questions. At present, her case is classified as a missing persons case and remains unsolved. The disappearance of John Henry Geppert III. John Henry Geppert III, a 27-year-old individual, was last observed in Los Angeles, California on December 10, 1988. The last contact he had with his family occurred when he made a phone call from a payphone in Huntington Beach. Unfortunately, no communication has been established with him since that time. John Henry Geppert III, commonly known as Jack within his family, came into the world on October 24, 1961. In 1988, John Henry Geppert reached out to his father to inform him that he would not be able to attend his own wedding. This pivotal moment marked his last communication with his family. The call, originating from a payphone situated in the vibrant city of Huntington Beach, California, left an indelible impression on both John Henry and his father. It served as a poignant reminder of the challenges and circumstances that led to his absence on such a significant day. As per the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, John was last spotted in the vibrant city of Los Angeles, California, precisely on December 10th. The whereabouts of John Geppert III, along with the details surrounding his disappearance, continue to elude authorities and those close to him. His case remains classified as a missing persons investigation, compelling investigators to meticulously analyze every lead and explore all possible scenarios. The precise details of his attire at the time of his disappearance are currently undisclosed and remain a mystery. The mysterious disappearance of Damian Sharp. In Warren, Pennsylvania, on the Memorial Day weekend of May 25, 2002, the 22-year-old Damien Sharp went missing under mysterious circumstances. Despite being last seen leaving a friend's apartment, his whereabouts remain unknown. Damien Mark Sharp, born on August 6, 1979, entered this world with great potential. His journey started at Warren Area High School, where he honed his academic abilities and graduated with distinction in 1998. During the period when Sharp went missing, he had recently come back to Warren after being stationed at Fort Drum in Watertown, New York. He had relocated to an apartment located at 19 Cedar Street in Warren, Pennsylvania, where he resided with his roommates. This information plays a crucial role in understanding Sharp's background and current circumstances at the time of his disappearance. Sharp possessed a profound expertise in the art of controlled combat, with a particular emphasis on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Just 7 days prior to vanishing without a trace, Damien Sharp suffered a knee injury at Master Skater, an enclosed skate park situated in Warren, Pennsylvania, where his sibling was employed. This unfortunate incident rendered Damien reliant on aluminum crutches to facilitate his mobility. These crutches served as his support system as he moved about, aiding him in his daily activities during this period. On the auspicious evening of May 24, 2002, Mr. Sharp joyously celebrated an unforgettable gathering in the warm embrace of his cherished apartment, located on the serene Cedar Street, in the picturesque town of Warren. On the morning of May 25, 2002, Sharp was collected by a female acquaintance. In the afternoon, Sharp and his brother rendezvoused at Master Skater to deliberate over their intentions of hosting a keg party amidst the tranquil woods, nestled approximately 1 mile away from the main road. However, after taking into consideration Sharp's leg injury, they ultimately reached a consensus to shift the location of the gathering to Sharp's apartment. This decision was made in order to ensure that Sharp's injury would not hinder his enjoyment of the festivities. At approximately 5 in the afternoon, Sharp was sighted for the last time by a close acquaintance who had just given him a ride to the intersection of Prospect and Dahl Street. Sharp's intention was to meet up with another friend residing in apartment 12 of Prospect Mansions, located at 332 Prospect Street in Warren, Pennsylvania. This intersection served as their designated meeting point, marking the beginning of a sequence of events that unfolded on that day. As per his companion's account, Sharp remained at that location for approximately 60 minutes before they bid farewell on the street just outside the apartment at around 6. They made plans to reunite later at a social gathering on Brown Run Road to celebrate the Memorial Day weekend. This information provides a detailed insight into Sharp's temporary stay, the duration of their interaction, and their subsequent plans for the evening festivities. On that fateful evening, Damien Sharp was conspicuously absent from the party, and since then, there has been no trace of him. On the 3rd of June in the year 2002, the family of the individual in question took the necessary step of filing a report with the City of Warren Police Department. In the month of June in the year 2002, extensive searches were conducted on both land and water, specifically targeting wooded areas that were popular camping spots. These searches were carried out with the intention of locating Damien, but unfortunately, the findings and outcomes of these efforts were never disclosed to the public. In March of 2003, Damien Sharp's disappearance was officially reclassified as a homicide by authorities due to the emergence of suspicious circumstances during the investigation. However, no further details have been provided by the authorities regarding the specific evidence that led them to this conclusion. This reclassification implies that the authorities have strong reasons to believe that Damien Sharp's disappearance was not a result of natural or accidental causes. According to a single witness who came forward, it was reported to the police that Damien met a tragic fate by being fired at by one of his associates due to a dispute over something that had gone missing. Furthermore, the witness mentioned that after his untimely demise, Damien was allegedly disposed of in cement, with the specific location being somewhere near the well-known Big Ben overlook in Warren. However, despite the revelations made by this eyewitness, no individuals have ever been formally charged or held accountable for their involvement in Damien's disappearance. There are suspicions of foul play surrounding the disappearance of Damien Sharp. The exact details surrounding his disappearance remain unclear. Despite ongoing efforts, the case of Damien Sharp remains unsolved, leaving investigators with many unanswered questions. The disappearance of Adeline Arredondo. Very little is known about Adeline Arredondo's disappearance. Adeline Arredondo, a 25-year-old individual, went missing on April 3, 2022, in the town of Comstock, Texas. Her disappearance occurred subsequent to her decision to flee from the scene once Border Patrol officers arrived. On the 3rd of April in the year 2022, Adeline Arredondo found herself in the company of a sizable group consisting of approximately 8 individuals who had already been engaged in a continuous walking activity for a duration spanning around 6 to 8 hours. On her journey, she consumed what she thought was aspirin. However, there are suspicions that she may have been administered a different medication. When Adeline lost consciousness and collapsed, the entire group immediately sprang into action. Their deep concern prompted them to do their best in providing immediate care and assistance to her. The whereabouts of Adeline Arredondo are still a mystery, as her location remains unknown. Her case falls under the category of endangered missing individuals, and unfortunately, it remains unresolved. The disappearance of Orlando Longmire. As of today, very little is known about Orlando Longmire's mysterious disappearance. Orlando Longmire, a 62-year-old individual, was reported missing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on March 30, 2022. Detailed investigation reveals that he was last seen on March 22 after departing from his residence while carrying his required medications. Orlando Longmire, a resident of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, came into this world on June 15, 1959. On the day of March 22, 2022, Orlando departed from his residence while carrying his necessary prescription medication containers. However, from that moment onwards, his family has not had any sight or knowledge of his whereabouts. On the evening of March 30, 2022, Orlando was sighted for the final time at approximately 5 in the vicinity of North 27th Street in Philadelphia. Orlando's whereabouts remain unknown, as there have been no sightings or any communication from him recently. There is a notable familiarity attached to his presence in the vicinity of Fox Street and Hunting Park Avenue. The precise whereabouts of Orlando Longmire and the details surrounding his vanishing continue to be a mystery, leaving the investigation into his case unresolved. The disappearance of Melissa Lemoyne. Melissa Lemoyne, a 39-year-old woman, went missing in Tampa, Florida on July 14, 2023. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance are quite concerning, as she vanished soon after being dropped off at the Frontier Travel Park to meet an individual she had connected with online. During the period when Melissa went missing, she resided in Lutz, Florida, a town situated approximately 15 miles away from Tampa. Lutz, a peaceful community with its distinct charm, provided a serene backdrop. In the scorching afternoon of July 14, 2023, a close relative transported Melissa to the sprawling and bustling Frontier Travel Park, situated conveniently on Nebraska Avenue in the vibrant city of Tampa, Florida. Melissa had made plans to meet an unfamiliar person whom she had been engaging with on Facebook. The purpose of this meeting was to finally meet face to face and get to know each other better. After leaving her last known location, Melissa unfortunately never reached her destination, and there has been no communication or information about her whereabouts since. When she did not come back home, her family took the initiative to report her as missing to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, expressing their concern and seeking assistance in locating her whereabouts. The current whereabouts of Melissa Lemoyne, along with the details surrounding her disappearance, continue to be shrouded in mystery. Despite extensive efforts to find her, the case remains unresolved. The mystery of David Holtz. Over 250,000 individuals are reported missing every year, with estimates of actual missing persons cases that are left unreported, pushing that total to more than an expected 300,000 cases annually. With that many reports, it is no wonder that a vast majority of these cases are left unsolved. However, every now and then there are a series of missing cases that emerge that are so peculiar, they become the subject of internet theories and impossible to explain theories. Known as the Missing 411, there appears to be a substantial number of missing persons cases relating to the disappearances of individuals from national parks. In fact, Many of these cases are believed to not be investigated too deeply, as some form of supernatural or paranormal cover-up takes place in these undisturbed locations. The Sequoia National Park, nestled just south of the renowned Yosemite National Park, boasts breathtaking views of pristine wilderness that, despite its splendor, is often overshadowed by its more popular neighbor. With its magnificent peaks made of predominantly granite, including the towering Mount Whitney, the tallest mountain in the contiguous United States, at a staggering elevation of 14,500 feet, Sequoia National Park holds a mesmerizing allure for adventurers seeking unspoiled natural beauty. Unfortunately for one family, this beauty would be tainted by one of the most tragic events to have occurred in the park during this time. According to the Missing Persons Report, on the 13th of July, back in 1971, a young 9-year-old by the name of David Holtz would suddenly vanish while walking with his family through the Sequoia National Park, leaving behind a haunting mystery for investigators to uncover. Colonel Edward Holtz, a distinguished commanding officer from the Los Angeles Armed Forces Examining and Instruction Center, embarked on a memorable camping and fishing trip with his 3 sons in this picturesque setting. Choosing the idyllic Dorst Creek campground, a location in close proximity to the popular Kings Canyon Visitors Center, and a mere 3 miles from the awe-inspiring giant General Sherman tree, considered to be the tallest tree in the world, the Holtz family eagerly set out to establish their camp and indulge in their shared passion for fishing. Unfortunately, as the Holtz family returned from their fishing excursion in Dorst Creek, David became separated from his brother Mike after expressing his desire to take a different path. According to Mike, his brother David had been standing behind him a few feet as they talked and walked down the path following their father. Several times as they walked back to their campground together, David pleaded with Mike if they could go together to investigate other pathways and areas away from the main hiking trail. Worried for his brother's safety, Mike would tell David not to step away from the trail and to stay within sight of him as they continued back to the campground. Mike would later tell investigators that as the 2 brothers were close to the campground, Mike said something to David, but David didn't reply, causing Mike to turn around and realize that David was nowhere nearby. While David's father and brother safely reached the campsite, their hearts sank as they realized David was nowhere to be found. Frantic shouts echoed through the wilderness as they immediately turned back and followed the hiking trail to where they had come from while calling out to 9-year-old David. The anxious group tirelessly scoured the area where David was last seen, but their calls were met with an eerie silence. The newspapers of the time reported Colonel Edward Holtz's heart-wrenching statement that his son was mentally challenged, which further compounded the already challenging search efforts. Determined to leave no stone unturned, the National Park Service, local sheriffs, and dedicated armed forces personnel from Hamilton Air Force Base rallied together to comb through the vast expanses of Sequoia National Park in a valiant attempt to locate David. Days turned into a week as the search persisted, yielding no sign of David. However, a glimmer of hope emerged on the 8th day when a searcher, en route to the Dorst Creek campground, stumbled upon a small tackle box resting on the side of the road. The discovery sent a mix of encouragement and concern through the search party. Colonel Holtz identified the tackle box as belonging to David, intensifying the belief that it was a tangible clue in close proximity to the area he disappeared. The peculiar nature of its placement, along a road traversed daily during the search, seemed almost like a cryptic message, adding an air of mystery to an already perplexing ordeal. Refusing to surrender hope, search parties persisted in scouring the mountainous terrain, their determination unwavering. Curiously, the airborne searches conducted over the area failed to spot David's bright red and orange shirt, the very garment he had been wearing when he vanished. Despite their exhaustive efforts, the formal search for David Holtz was reluctantly concluded after 2 weeks of relentless pursuit. Nevertheless, Colonel Edward Holtz, driven by unwavering paternal love, could not bear to abandon the quest to find his beloved son. On July 31st, 18 days after David's disappearance, accompanied by a loyal friend, Edward Holtz ventured into an elevated region known as Colony Meadows, situated an estimated 8,000 feet above the point where David had last been seen. Amidst the pristine beauty of this lush, verdant meadow, adorned with majestic giant sequoias, a heartbreaking discovery unfolded. Edward and his companion stumbled upon David Holtz, but they were too late. Regrettably, the available records fail to provide any details regarding the condition of David and what caused him to pass away. And while the Park Service initially attributed his demise to exposure and exhaustion, it is essential to note that no autopsy had been conducted at that time. To unravel the enigma of how David ended up in Colony Meadows from Dorst Creek is a riveting aspect of this tragic tale. If we are to embrace the belief that David's tackle box was indeed discovered along the road leading to Dorst Creek Campground, in a direction completely opposite to where he was eventually found, it implies that David, who was only 9 at the time, ventured further east, tracing the path upstream of the creek, ultimately leading him towards the captivating meadow directly through the path of active search and rescue volunteers. It appears that David, rather than retracing his steps along the road back to the campground, or even venturing towards the nearby major highway, embarked on a path that led him below Colony Meadows. There, he encountered a treacherously steep and rock-faced mountainside, an imposing obstacle that seemingly rose vertically for 700 to 900 feet, depending on the precise route he took, a height and steepness that would have been impossible for even experienced climbers to have pursued, and completely unfathomable for such a young individual. Adding another layer of intrigue to this haunting tale, it is disheartening to note that the case file, which could potentially shed further light on the search for David, has been inexplicably destroyed. After the Sequoia National Park was petitioned with a Freedom of Information Act to force the release of any information the park had gathered on the David Holtz case, the National Park officials would respond to the query with the claim that all information surrounding Holtz had been recently destroyed. While the fate of David remains shrouded in uncertainty, his story resonates deeply with the countless other missing persons cases that have plagued communities worldwide. The mystery of Charles C. Morgan. In the early morning hours of March 22, 1977, Charles Morgan, an escrow agent residing in Phoenix, Arizona, mysteriously disappeared after leaving his home. However, after an agonizing 3 days, he finally returned to his wife, Ruth, with an unsettling revelation. It was around 2 a.m. when he made his way back, with noticeable restraints adorning his body, a plastic handcuff encircling one ankle and handcuffs tightly securing his hands. Unable to vocalize his distress, Charles pointed urgently to his throat, silently indicating his inability to speak. Recognizing his communication limitations, Ruth promptly offered him a pen and paper, to which he scribbled a haunting message. He had been subjected to the ingestion of a potent hallucinogenic medication that could potentially ravage his delicate nervous system. Fearful for her husband's well-being, Ruth expressed her desire to involve the authorities or seek medical attention. However, Charles, aware of the risks involved, implored her not to take any action that could jeopardize the safety of their family. During the time that Ruth cared for him and aided his recovery, he revealed a shocking revelation. He had been employed as a covert operative, working undercover for the U.S. Treasury Department for a period spanning 2 to 3 years. However, he did not elaborate further, mentioning only that his captors had forcibly taken away his Treasury identification. Disturbingly, 2 months subsequent to his initial disappearance, he once again vanished without a trace. It was after a hiatus of 9 days that Ruth found herself at the receiving end of an enigmatic phone call from a mysterious woman who conveyed the cryptic message, "Chuck is all right," and abruptly terminated the call. The inexplicable reference to Ecclesiastes 12, 1-8, added another layer of intrigue to an already perplexing situation. 2 days elapsed following the enigmatic phone call, precisely on June 18th, when Charles was finally discovered lifeless. The resting place lay 40 miles to the west of Tucson, adjacent to his abandoned vehicle. The discovery revealed that Charles had met a tragic fate, having suffered a pistol wound to the back of his head, inflicted by none other than his own firearm. What further perplexed investigators was the fact that he was found wearing a bulletproof vest, adorned with a belt buckle cunningly concealing a hidden knife and a holster that once housed his weapon. The intriguing twist in this already enigmatic tale unfolded with the presence of a pair of sunglasses at the scene, conspicuously not belonging to the deceased. As the investigation delved deeper, Charles's car became the focal point of scrutiny. By meticulously combing through its contents, authorities unearthed an assortment of weaponry and a substantial stockpile of ammunition, leaving little doubt as to his preparedness for unforeseen circumstances. However, the perplexities did not end there. The car itself had undergone modifications, ingeniously allowing it to be unlocked from the fender. This detail not only added to the mystique surrounding Charles's demise, but also hinted at a deliberate attempt to obfuscate his intentions or perhaps protect valuable possessions. Adding to the bizarre chain of events, a startling discovery was made on the rear seat of the vehicle, a tooth belonging to Morgan, neatly wrapped in a white handkerchief. The inexplicable nature of this find left investigators puzzled, as it presented more questions than answers. In a twist that seemed to border on the surreal, a peculiar item was also discovered, an elusive $2 bill. On its surface, several Spanish surnames were scrawled, capturing the attention of those engaged in the investigation. Attached to the bill was a meticulously pinned map of the border area, encompassing the regions between Tucson and Mexico, specifically leading to Robles Junction and Felicity. Notoriously known for their illicit activities during that era, these towns held a reputation for smuggling. Adding to the enigma were the words Ecclesiastes 12 etched above the surnames, accompanied by an arrow that pointed towards specific digits in the bill's serial number, cunningly highlighting the numbers 1 and 8. According to the medical examiners, Charles Morgan was reportedly deceased for a duration of approximately 12 hours prior to being discovered. It is particularly peculiar that no fingerprints were detected at the crime scene, not even on the firearm. However, gunpowder residue and traces were found on Morgan's hands. Due to these findings, the sheriff's department concluded that the cause of his passing was self-inflicted, thus closing the investigation into the Charles C. Morgan case. The absence of fingerprints on the scene, especially on the pistol, raises further questions about the circumstances surrounding Morgan's demise. The presence of gunpowder and residue on his hands provides a significant clue. Ruth Morgan adamantly refuted the theory and firmly maintains the belief that her late husband was not a victim of natural causes, but rather met with foul play. The mysterious disappearance of Bradley Strakener. Bradley Strakener, a 30-year-old individual, went missing on October 30, 2019, in Leesville, Louisiana. This incident occurred when he left his residence with the purpose of returning a vehicle to his girlfriend. Bradley Strakener, a distinguished individual, came into this world on the 29th of July, 1989. Being a proud member of the Four Winds tribe, he holds a significant position within the esteemed Louisiana Cherokee Confederacy. He has a deep fondness for nature and possesses exceptional skills in navigating the wilderness. His family and friends find it highly unusual that he has gone missing without maintaining any form of communication with them. On the 30th of October, in the year 2019, Bradley Strakener found himself in the charming and welcoming town of Sandy Hill. At approximately 1:45 in the afternoon, he departed from the apartment he cohabited with his roommate, embarking on a journey to return his girlfriend's car, which happened to be located around 10 miles away. Bradley, unfortunately, never arrived at his intended location and has remained completely unreachable ever since. On the morning of October 31st, 2019, precisely at 6:30 in the morning, the vehicle in which Bradley was last sighted was discovered deserted in close proximity to a hunting property that had been leased. This property is situated on Bundix Road, near Highway 10, at a distance of approximately 2 miles from the location where Bradley was last observed. Upon discovery, the vehicle was located in an unlocked state, and to further exacerbate the situation, the keys were left carelessly on the passenger seat. Despite this alarming discovery, authorities were perplexed to find an absence of any indications or traces of a struggle. Numerous diligent searches were extensively carried out across the designated vicinity, yet regrettably, no discernible traces or indications pertaining to his current location were unearthed. In a significant development, Bradley's mother, Toni, has assumed the prestigious role of Louisiana Director within Community United Effort, which is also known as the esteemed Center for Missing Persons. In the month of May in the year 2022, the organization undertook an extensive search operation in the Sandy Hills region with the aim of locating Bradley. To aid in this search, highly trained cadaver dogs were employed, their expert noses meticulously scouring the area in hopes of finding any clues. The disappearance of Bradley is currently under investigation by authorities, who believe that foul play may be involved. Despite their suspicions, no specific individuals or persons of interest have been identified as potential suspects. Despite ongoing efforts, his case remains unresolved. The disappearance of Lester Whitmire. Lester Whitmire, a 65-year-old individual, was last observed on June 18, 2021, in the vicinity of Oak Ridge, Oregon. An intriguing detail about his disappearance is that he mentioned his intention to visit the McCready Hot Springs, which subsequently led to his vanishing. Lester Whitmire's last known sighting occurred on June 18, 2021, as confirmed by a family member. During that period, he resided in the Oak Ridge region of Oregon. According to his statement, Whitmire declared his intention to visit the McCready Hot Springs. On July 2, 2021, his disappearance was formally documented to the Lane County Sheriff's Office. An official report was filed expressing concern over his whereabouts. Lester's automobile, along with his possessions securely stored within, was discovered in the vast expanse of the Willamette National Forest, positioned to the east of the town of Oak Ridge. The search and rescue team of Lane County Sheriff meticulously combed through the vicinity in which his vehicle was discovered, painstakingly searching for any traces or hints that could lead them to his exact location. Despite their extensive efforts, no supplementary clues or information regarding his whereabouts were uncovered. Lester is known to have connections with the Redmond area, but there is limited information regarding his case. The whereabouts of Lester Whitmire, along with the details surrounding his vanishing, continue to be a mystery that has yet to be unraveled. His case is categorized as a missing persons investigation and has remained unsolved, leaving many unanswered questions. The mysterious disappearance of Erica Frazier. Erica Frazier, a 17-year-old girl, went missing in Brooksville, Kentucky on October 21, 1997. This unfortunate event took place when she was heading home after enjoying a night out with her friends. Erica Frazier, a Kentucky native, came into this world on May 6, 1980, to her loving parents, Maggie Doherty and Kevin Frazier. In 1997, Erica found herself in her final year of high school at Bracken County High School. With her sights set on a future in accounting, she had already made plans to attend Northern Kentucky University upon graduating. Balancing her studies and ambitions, Erica also dedicated her time to working part-time at Carota's Pizza, a popular local pizza joint nestled in the heart of Augusta. In the evening of October 21, 1997, Erica was spotted socializing with her companions near the Video en Tan establishment in Brooksville, Kentucky. This interaction occurred between the hours of 9 and 10 in the evening. Erica Frazier, a young woman who set out from her home, tragically never made it back. Erica's absence was brought to the attention of the Bracken County Sheriff's Office by her concerned mother as she failed to make it back home. On the 22nd of October in the year 1997, Erica's car, which was a 1988 Pontiac Bonneville, was discovered unlocked and deserted in a field situated off Frunks Lane, right on the outskirts of Brooksville. During the investigation, law enforcement discovered that Erica's possessions, including her purse, wallet, checkbook, and money, were located inside her vehicle. However, the keys to the car were later found in a field across the road. Interestingly, upon examining the car, the police did not find any fingerprints, foreign hairs, or indications of any suspicious activity or wrongdoing. There is currently no evidence to suggest that Erica voluntarily departed on her own accord, and it should be noted that she did not collect the $100 paycheck that was awaiting her at Carota's Pizza. She chose not to share her intentions of embarking on a journey with her circle of friends, and there were no previous instances of her spontaneously leaving without notice. It is worth noting that she consistently demonstrated commendable academic performance, and there were no discernible signs of distress or turmoil in her personal life. On October 21, 1997, Erica Lee Frazier vanished under mysterious circumstances. She was last spotted in her vehicle, accompanied by Shane M. Simcox, a 20-year-old individual whom she had only known for less than 12 months. This puzzling disappearance raises numerous questions about the nature of their relationship. In a remarkably detailed account provided to the police, Simcox explained that he had been engaging in an evening of socializing with his companions, enjoying a series of visits to various bars. As the night progressed, and a moderate amount of alcohol had been consumed, Simcox found himself situated on a street corner in Brooksville, Kentucky. Based on Simcox's account, Erica extended an invitation to him to accompany her on a sightseeing trip around the city. This invitation was extended after one of Erica's friends left the vehicle, providing an opportunity for them to spend some quality time together. Their private ride lasted somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes, allowing them to engage in meaningful conversation and enjoy each other's company. The disappearance of Margaret Mary Kohler. On the 20th of February, back in 2011, a 53-year-old woman by the name of Margaret Kohler would suddenly vanish after planning a short daytime visit to the Cummins Creek wilderness. Although investigators originally thought that Margaret's case was that of an inexperienced hiker traveling too deep within the national park forest, investigators would soon realize that Margaret Kohler would frequently travel to the Cummins Creek wilderness to forage for wild mushrooms and truffles. According to Margaret's friend, Mrs. Kohler had become quite familiar with the region and would often take weekly trips to the area with her 5-year-old Labrador Border Collie mix, named Roscoe. Growing up in the seaside city of Waldport, Oregon, Margaret Kohler had become highly experienced with the outdoors, Cummins Creek wilderness, and the surrounding trails, and was known by her friends and family as having been an avid hiker. Yet, regardless of her vast amount of wilderness experience and her many safety precautions, Margaret Kohler would seemingly vanish with no trace of her left behind. The search for Margaret would begin on the day of her disappearance, after her friend contacted the local sheriff's department and claimed that she was unable to make contact with Mrs. Kohler at their scheduled time. Due to her frequently traveling alone, Margaret was worried that if she did not take the necessary precautions, she could end up injured and stranded out in the national park without anyone knowing she was gone. It was for this very reason that Margaret told her friend prior to her trip that she was planning on taking Roscoe for a walk near the Cape Perpetua area. Although the last time Margaret had been seen was on the 19th of February, after getting an expected time frame of Margaret's itinerary from her friend, detectives were able to put an accurate time to when Margaret Kohler had arrived in the area, believed to have been during the early morning. Within only 8 hours of her disappearance, the Lane and Lincoln County Sheriff's Department, alongside the United States Forest Service and the Oregon State Police, would begin their search and rescue efforts for Margaret and Roscoe. Oddly enough, after scouring several parking lots and common stops, the search and rescue teams were unable to locate Margaret Kohler's vehicle. Given the fact that the investigators were unsure which trail Margaret Kohler had followed, it made it increasingly difficult for search and rescue teams to efficiently check a tighter radius, forcing them to expand their search to a much larger area. Local volunteer groups had spent the better part of the first 2 days walking up and down the Cape Perpetua area, but were unable to find any tracks or signs of Margaret Kohler having visited anywhere in the region. With the lack of any sign of Margaret's vehicle or equipment anywhere near the region, investigators started to wonder whether or not the missing hiker was even within the park. For this reason, in conjunction with the search and rescue efforts, the local sheriff's department would keep out a missing persons file for any information relating to Margaret's disappearance, worried that she could have been the victim of foul play or could have gotten into a car accident in an isolated area. It would be due to these suspicions that the search and rescue efforts were temporarily reduced over the course of about 2 weeks. It would not be until the 3rd of March that proof of Margaret having arrived in the park was found. According to the United States Forest Service, one of the Forest Service law enforcement officers had found Margaret's van on the side of Forest Service Road in the Cummins Ridge Trail area. The Cummins Ridge Road was a far deeper major pathway that was only accessible after driving south through an area known as Neptune State Scenic Viewpoint, past a coastal area named the Devil's Churn due to its history of supernatural sightings. Inexperienced hikers would not have been able to see that the small trail opens up into a much larger pathway, and so investigators were certain that Margaret must have visited the area several times in the past to know exactly how much room there would be for her vehicle. The vehicle itself was completely unoccupied, and after having been searched, a park receipt would be located that would confirm that Margaret Kohler had reached the park sometime on the 20th of February. Immediately after the vehicle was discovered by the United States Forest Service law enforcement officer, a massive search would be conducted in the area for a 10-mile radius. Unfortunately, despite more than 50 volunteers involved in the search, no sign of Margaret or her dog Roscoe was uncovered. On the following day, a team of bloodhounds were brought to the abandoned vehicle to help find a trackable scent. However, due to the tremendous gap in time from Margaret's initial disappearance and the discovery of her vehicle, the experienced canine teams were unable to locate a scent they could track. Oddly enough, on the 5th of March, more than 2 weeks since Margaret had disappeared, roughly 2.2 miles south of where Margaret's abandoned vehicle was located, local search and rescue volunteers would find Roscoe casually walking along the area of 10 Mile Creek. Once investigators took a closer look at Roscoe, they were surprised to find that the dog appeared to have been in perfect health. Deputies with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office would make several attempts to get Roscoe to lead them to where Margaret may have been, but the dog seemed too playful and easily distracted, making it impossible for search and rescuers to get the dog to lead them back to Margaret.